Chapter 44-45. Silence, a deathly silence. Only Zhuo Wen's voice reverberated between heaven and earth, echoing endlessly. Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and the others' expressions changed completely. They could no longer remain calm, and their palms were sweating. Hikari, Ling Shenwei, the elite troops of Voidyang Divine City had been wiped out by Zhuowen. Answer me. Zhuowen raised his head and looked coldly at Virtual Corona and the others. His voice was filled with murderous intent. Virtual Corona, Mi Liang, and the others' expressions turned ugly. Zhuowen, you're really presumptuous. Do you really think that the Xulong family can't do anything to you? Since your cultivation is not easy, leave on your own. The Xulong family won't hold you accountable for your mistakes. Xu Mianyang took a deep breath and finally spoke. But the words that came out of his mouth left everyone dumbfounded. Was Xu Mianyang admitting defeat in disguise? With that, Virtual Corona waved her sleeves, and the divine warship turned into a ray of light and flew toward Voidyang Divine City. Boom. However, the divine warship had only traveled a few dozen meters when it was stopped by a powerful barrier. An array. Virtual Corona's expression changed drastically. She turned around and looked at Zhuowen with a gloomy face. Zhuowen, what do you want? Virtual Corona said with a trembling voice. You were shouting to kill me just now. Now that you know you're no match for me, you want to leave after saying a few words. How can there be such a good thing in this world? Zhuowen stepped through the void. His expression was calm, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I don't care if you're Zhuowen or Zhuowen. I think you're a smart person. Our family leader is not far away. Do you dare to kill us? Mi Liang sneered fearlessly. This time, Mi Haomiao had followed along. He had enough confidence. Even though the battle prowess that Zhuowen had just displayed was truly terrifying, and he was far from being able to compare with it. But so what if he was strong? In front of an lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert, they were nothing but trash. Mi Haomiao, can he make it? Zhuowen's lips curled up, revealing a chilling smile. Mi Liang finally realized that Mi Haomiao had been blocked by Li Yinglong. Mi Haomiao's face turned pale. Whoosh. The moment Mi Liang came back to his senses, a strong wind swept over him. He subconsciously looked up and found that Zhuowen had appeared above him without him knowing. Boom. Zhuowen's right foot suddenly stomped down, landing on Mi Liang's chest. Mi Liang roared. Divine power erupted from his body, and a huge cosmic avatar appeared. However, his cosmic form was ruthlessly crushed under Zhuowen's feet like tofu. Splat. Mi Liang's chest was stomped under Zhuowen's foot, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Now, I'm going to kill you. Do you think Mi Haomiao can make it in time to save you? Zhuowen looked down at Mi Liang and said word by word. On the deck of the divine warship, the remaining cultivators of the Xulong and Xuli families all dispersed in an uproar. They stayed far away from Zhuowen, their eyes filled with fear. Mi Liang's body trembled uncontrollably. He kept glancing at Mi Haomiao and realized that the latter had been blocked by Li Yinglong. He wouldn't be able to make it in time. I'll die. Mi Liang's heart trembled with fear as thoughts flooded his mind. Li Yinglong, get out of the way. If you don't blame me for not giving you face. Mi Haomiao looked at Li Yinglong, who was blocking his way. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. When Zhuowen killed Hikari and Ling Shenwei, Mi Haomiao couldn't sit still anymore. He wanted to stop Zhuowen. However, Li Yinglong had moved to stop him, preventing him from providing any assistance. He watched as the Hikari were completely slaughtered by Zhuowen. He was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. Now that Zhuowen had attacked Mi Liang, Mi Haomiao couldn't sit still anymore. Hikari was completely wiped out. To the Xuli family, the loss was indeed disastrous. However, they could still nurture more. However, Mi Liang was Mi Haomiao's most beloved son. If he lost him, it would be a huge blow to him. Li Yinglong laughed coldly. This Mi Haomiao was really unreasonable. Just now, when they were planning to help, Mi Haomiao blocked them completely. Now, everything had turned around. There was no way he could get out of the way. Am I Hao Miao? You didn't give me any face from the start. What face do you have? Li Yinglong laughed coldly. Ah, don't kill me. I was wrong. I only beg you to spare my life. Suddenly, a shrill cry for mercy came from the divine ship in the distance. On the deck of the divine ship, Zhuowen lifted his leg and stomped on Mi Liang. Mi Liang's bones were all crushed. Blood gushed out of his mouth. However, he still begged for mercy in a low voice. He didn't want to die. He had a bright future ahead of him. It wasn't worth it to die here. However, Zhuowen's expression was extremely cold. He took out a soul sword intent and mercilessly stabbed it into Mi Liang's forehead. Mi Liang's screams stopped abruptly. Then, his aura completely dissipated. His soul had been destroyed by the sword intent. He was dead. No! Mi Hao Miao roared. He suddenly released the terrifying aura of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth and charged toward Zhuowen without any regard for his life. Li Yinglong, on the other hand, wasn't afraid. Her aura wasn't any weaker than Mi Hao Miao's. It entangled Mi Hao Miao, making it impossible for him to escape. After killing Mi Liang, Zhuowen's gaze landed on Xu Ju. He said indifferently, "Xu Ju, we could have continued working together. Unfortunately, it was you who broke your promise first. Our cooperation was ruined in the end. I came to Shuyang City for 2 reasons. First, to find someone. Second, to repay my debt. Are you ready?" As he spoke, Zhuowen appeared in front of Xu Ju like lightning. His right hand was like steel as it ruthlessly smashed toward Xu Ju's face. Xu Ju's eyes narrowed. Without thinking, he took out the Qian Kuan world and blocked in front of him. Meanwhile, he quickly retreated. His face was extremely pale. Rip! The Qian Kuan world was easily torn apart by Zhuowen's bare hands. He chased after Xu Ju, his right hand easily grabbing Xu Ju's neck and lifting him off the ground. Brother Zhuo, I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai in the past. I betrayed you. But now, I know that I was wrong. I hope that you can show mercy. Our Shulong family is the #1 family in Shuyang City. We have a deep foundation and countless experts. If you kill me and my brother, it won't do you any good. Instead, you'll be hunted down by the Shulong family. You'll be harming yourself. If you let us go now, you'll win the friendship of the Shulong family. This friendship is extremely precious to you. Xu Ju's face was filled with pain as he hurriedly explained. Zhuowen, you're too presumptuous. If you kill Xu Ju, you won't be able to live either. Let him go. Virtual Corona shouted sternly. Crack. Zhuowen's right hand suddenly exerted force. Xu Ju's neck was bent, and his divine soul was crushed by the divine soul sword intent that Zhuowen had secretly released. Chapter 44-46. Bam! Zhuowen casually tossed Xu Ju out, and he landed heavily in front of Virtual Corona. Don't worry, Xu Ju won't be alone. That's because you're about to follow him. Zhuowen raised his eyebrows, and his sharp gaze focused on Virtual Corona. He grinned, revealing a chilling smile. You can't kill me. Virtual Corona snorted, and a crystal ball shaped like an eyeball appeared in his right hand. Instantly, the space around Virtual Corona shattered, and a vast force pulled him into the depths of the shattered space. Eye of the Void. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He immediately recognized that Virtual Corona was using the Eye of the Void to escape. In the past, Xu Ju had given him a void eye for the sake of allowing him to bring the map fragment out successfully. If Xu Ju had the Eye of the Void, Zhuowen might not have been able to kill him. Unfortunately, Xu Ju only had one Eye of the Void, and it was in Zhuowen's possession. Xu Mianyang's entire body was sucked into the shattered space. In an instant, Zhuowen took a step forward, and 3 cosmic Laksana Dharma Laksana blasted toward Xu Mianyang. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded, and the huge godly warship was blown to pieces. Terrifying shockwaves swept across the sky like a long dragon. Inside the divine ship, the other cultivators screamed in agony as they perished in the explosion. Ah! Zhuowen, I'll make you pay. Just you wait. Virtual Corona's angry screams echoed in the explosion, but they soon disappeared. Zhuoan leaped out of the explosion and looked at the core of the explosion silently, his eyes cold and merciless. Just now, the three cosmic forms attacked together. When Virtual Corona escaped, they should have severely injured Virtual Corona. He felt that it was a pity. If he could kill Virtual Corona in one fell swoop, it would be perfect. Little b** starred. I want you dead. The moment Zhuoan destroyed the divine warship of the Virtual Corona, an earth-shattering roar came from behind him. Zhuoan raised his eyebrows as a strong sense of crisis swept through his mind. He turned around abruptly and saw Mai Haomiao rushing over. Mai Haomiao's aura was like a rainbow as his slightly messy long hair fluttered in the wind. His aura, in particular, was too terrifying. It was as if the entire world was being torn apart by his aura. As Mai Haomiao flew over, his body grew larger and larger, and his aura grew more and more terrifying. 300 meters, 3,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 1,000,000 meters. When Mai Haomiao's body became 3 million meters tall, his entire body seemed to pierce through the heavens and the earth. As for Mai Haomiao, his aura had completely changed. His appearance was no longer that of a middle-aged man. Instead, he had a green face and sharp fangs. He looked like an evil spirit, sinister and terrifying. Die. The 10,000 jong tall giant stepped forward step by step and uttered a single word. A terrifying sound wave swept over as if 1,000 layers of waves had been set off. With Zhuoan as the center, all the energy and laws within 100,000 jong radius seemed to have frozen. Zhuoan's physical body and soul were restrained by an invisible force, and he couldn't move at all. The lawful embodiment of heaven and earth was the embodiment of heaven and earth. It could control the laws of heaven and earth as if they were its arms. At this moment, a strong sense of helplessness rose in Zhuoan's heart. Mai Haomiao was too powerful. Just a single word from him was enough to restrain him and make him unable to move. Is this the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth? So powerful. Zhuoan's face was gloomy as he stared at the giant that was approaching him with large strides. The lawful embodiment of heaven and earth was completely different from the universal Dharma idol. The universal Dharma idol was just a projection of a portion of the laws of heaven and earth, while the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth was a physical entity that resonated with the laws of heaven and earth. There were similarities between the two, but there were also huge differences. Boom, boom, boom. The three universal Dharma idols roared and lunged at the giant. The giant casually waved his hand, and the three universal Dharma idols were unable to resist at all and exploded into powder. Mai Haomiao, you dare! The moment the green-faced fanged giant stepped forward, an angry voice rang out. Another giant that was 1,000,000 jong tall appeared in front of Zhuoan. This giant's face was a mixture of black and white, and it was ferocious and terrifying. A single golden horn grew from its head. Patriarch Li? Zhuoan looked at the terrifying giant in front of him and softly asked. The single-horned giant glanced back at Zhuoan and nodded. Young Master Zhuo, follow Li Ying and the others back to the Void Realm family. Once you return to the Void Realm family, no one will dare to touch you. As the single-horned giant spoke, Zhuoan suddenly realized that the strange restraining force on him had already been broken, and he could move again. Young Master Zhuo, quickly board the divine warship. Let's go back first. Just as Zhuoan regained his ability to move, a divine ship swept over. On the deck, Li Shuo hurriedly said to Zhuoan. Zhuoan nodded and jumped onto the deck without any pretense. The divine ship was like a bolt of black lightning, quickly leaving the area. Not long after the divine ship left, Zhuoan could hear Mai Haomiao's terrifying roar from behind. He turned back and was shocked to see that the giant and the single-horned giant had crashed into each other. The terrifying energy was like countless volcanoes erupting at the same time. It was simply too terrifying. Lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Zhuoan muttered to himself, but his heart was heavy. After reaching the universal Dharma idol's level, Zhuoan believed that he could protect himself in Void Realm Divine City. But now, after witnessing the terror of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, he realized that his previous thoughts were like a frog at the bottom of a well. As far as he knew, Mai Haomiao and Li Yinglong were only at the early stage of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Then, how powerful would the middle stage, late stage, and even the peak stage, or even the stage after the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth be? Young Master Zhuo, during this time, you must hide in our Void Realm family. You killed Ling Shenwei, Hikari, Xu Ju, and Mi Liang. The Void Long and Void Qi families will not let this matter rest. They will be wary of our Void Realm family and will not make things difficult for you. But if you leave the Void Realm family, you may be in danger. Li Shuo looked at the worried Zhuoan and hurriedly reminded him. Thank you. Zhuoan sighed softly. Brother Zhuo, you are too courteous. You have helped our Void Realm family so much. This is what we should do. Li Shuo chuckled. This time, Mi Liang and Virtual Corona reaped what they sowed. If they had not come to kill you, young Master Zhuo, things would not have turned out this way. In this aspect, the two families are in the wrong. Li Ying spoke for the first time. The divine ship was extremely fast. In less than 15 minutes, they had returned to Void Realm Divine City. Li Ying and the others did not dare to linger outside Void Realm Divine City. They quietly entered the city and returned to the Void Realm family. As soon as they returned, all the experts in the Void Realm family entered a state of high alert. They were naturally worried that the Void Long and Void Qi families would act out of desperation. Li Ying even sent someone to report this matter to the King of Hell. If the situation was not right, the King of Hell's experts would naturally come out to mediate. However, after the Void Realm family waited for an entire night, the other two families did not make any unnecessary moves. Only when Li Yinglong returned safely did the vigilance in the Void Realm family finally relax slightly. Chapter 44-47. In the main hall of the Shuming family. Li Yinglong sat at the head of the table with a solemn expression, while Zhuoan sat not far away. In addition, the upper echelons of the Shuming family, Li Ying, and the other junior representatives were all present. XDW 8-inch young Master Zhuo, Ling Shenwei, and Hikari are extremely important to the two families. You killed them all. The two families will definitely not let you go, especially the Shu Qi family. Mi Haomiao was Mi Haomiao's most beloved son. He died in your hands, so he will definitely think of ways to deal with you. But don't worry, as long as you are still in our Shuming family, we will protect you until the end. We will not let the two families succeed. Li Yinglong looked at Zhuoan and said in a comforting tone. Zhuoan stood up and cupped his hands to thank Li Yinglong. He also noticed that Li Yinglong's face was slightly pale. It seemed that his battle with Mi Haomiao had not been easy. What did the King of Hell say? Li Yinglong suddenly looked at Li Ying and asked. Li Ying cupped his hands and said in a low voice, the Gold Lord has already announced. The Shu Qi family and the Shulong family were in the wrong first, so they declared young Master Zhuo innocent. If the two families wantonly attack young Master Zhuo in the Divine City, the King of Hell will intervene and punish them according to the laws of the Shuyang family. Li Yinglong nodded and said in a low voice, it seems that the King of Hell has really done it. I can feel that many of the auras that were gathered in the shadows nearby have quietly left. When these words were spoken, the faces of everyone in the hall changed greatly. They did not need to think to know that the auras that were hidden in the shadows were most likely from the two families. They were waiting for Zhuoan to appear and give him a thunderous blow. However, now that the King of Hell had appeared, the two families were somewhat afraid and did not dare to be so brazen. Li Shuo, Li Hong, take young Master Zhuo to rest first. Li Yinglong waved her sleeve. Li Shuo and Li Hong hurriedly stood up and bowed, then left with Zhuoan. After Zhuoan left, the originally quiet hall immediately became noisy. Sounds of discussion rose and fell. Patriarch, this kid is too ruthless. He actually killed Ling Shenwei and Hikari. This is a complete break with the two great families. Yes. If we continue to protect him, then our Void Tier clan will be implicated in the end. It's better to let him leave earlier. Many of the upper echelons of the illusionary aristocratic families spoke up, asking Li Yinglong not to let Zhuoan stay for too long. Li Yinglong looked at the noisy group of high-ranking officials in silence. Only when the voices gradually died down did he continue to speak. If it wasn't for young Master Zhuo, we wouldn't have been able to achieve victory in the competition. It was even more impossible for him to obtain so many divine void mountain springs. We owe him such a big favor. Now, seeing that he's in trouble, should we kick him away? Li Yinglong spoke slowly, his voice exceptionally solemn. Patriarch, this child has indeed contributed greatly to our family. However, we will also give him 30% of the divine void mountain spring. Also, you saved this child and fought a great battle with Mi Haomiao. To be honest, we don't owe him anything anymore. An old man stood up, his eyes flashing with a sharp light as he spoke slowly. The moment this old man spoke, the hall became much quieter, and everyone's gazes became much more respectful. The old man's name was Li Jiolong, and he was Li Yinglong's uncle. He was a person of virtue and prestige, and in the illusionary aristocratic family, even Li Yinglong had to be polite to him. Li Yinglong fell silent. He could choose not to listen to the words of others. However, he could not pretend that he did not hear the words of the old man in front of him, his uncle. Uncle, I have made up my mind. Zhuowen, I will protect him. Li Yinglong was silent for a moment, then raised his head and said word by word seriously. Li Jiolong looked deeply at Li Yinglong, then sat down and did not say anything else. In a spacious and elegant room, Zhuowen sat cross-legged, consolidating his newly advanced cultivation base. A day had passed since Zhuowen killed Hikari and Ling Shenwei. During this time, Zhuowen's name had spread through the entire Shuyang Divine City. Almost every cultivator in the city knew that a young cultivator named Zhuanyanxue had single-handedly killed Ling Shenwei and Hikari of the Shu-Qi aristocratic family. Of course, the fact that Zhuanyanxue was only an alias had also spread. Most people already knew Zhuowen's real name. Suddenly, Xiao Hei's voice rang out in his mind. The simplified version of the Chariot of Chariot has been completed. Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy, and he hurriedly summoned Xiao Hei from the starlight world of the 7 emotions 6 desires Saint Lord. After taking complete control of the starlight world of the 7 emotions 6 desires Saint Lord, Zhuowen kicked Xiao Hei in and ordered him to quickly create the simplified version of the Chariot of Chariot. With the flow of time inside, Zhuowen believed that Xiao Hei wouldn't take too long. However, Xiao Hei had still exceeded his expectations. He had actually completed it so quickly. It looked like he really was blessed by the heavens when it came to equipment Dao. A flash of black light shot out, revealing the Taiyu sacred sword. Xiao Hei sat leisurely on the hilt of the sword, his black eyes filled with pride. Xiao Hei, did you really create the Chariot of Chariot of Chariot? Zhuowen hurriedly asked. Xiao Hei smiled mysteriously. Of course. Although it's only a simplified version, it's still much faster than most of the divine artifacts in the 100 Outer Realms. This is something that I, Master Long, have spent countless efforts and used many materials to finally create. As she spoke, Xiao Hei waved her little paw, and a divine chariot wrapped in blazing light appeared beside Xiao Hei. This divine chariot was about the size of a palm, and its entire body was flowing with dazzling divine radiance. At a glance, it was extremely extraordinary. The appearance of the divine chariot was similar to the divine chariot in the design of the Zhen constellation. The details might not be as good, but overall, it was much more extraordinary than many divine warships. Let's try this chariot. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with excitement. He took the sacred chariot and entered the great world. With Xiao Hei's guidance, he poured his divine power into the divine chariot. The palm-sized chariot expanded with the wind, instantly growing to a size of dozens of feet. Zhuowen jumped onto the deck while Xiao Hei jumped onto Zhuowen's shoulder. Let me show you the speed of this divine carriage. Xiao Hei smiled mysteriously. It waved its little paw lightly, and the divine chariot rushed out as fast as lightning. The 2 wheels emitted dazzling multicolored light, and in less than half a breath of time, they appeared at the barrier at the end of the great world. What a fast speed! Zhuowen's pupils constricted as he was shocked by the speed of the chariot. His great world was extremely vast, equivalent to the territory of a high-level realm. Moreover, the great world's surface area was still expanding. Its future development potential was enormous. The divine chariot only needed half a breath of time to traverse such a large territory. The speed was inconceivably fast. Chapter 44-48. Kid, the chariot I made isn't bad, right? Xiao Hei said proudly when he saw the shocked expression on Zhuowen's face. It's really not bad. Xiao Hei, you've done a great job this time. Zhuowen's lips curled upwards. With this simplified version of the Zhen constellation sacred chariot, he would have the ability to escape even if my Haomiao, an expert of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, chased after him. After keeping the chariot, Zhuowen left the outside world. Who sent me a message? Zhuowen had just left the outside world when he realized that the communication talisman on his waist had lit up. When he opened the communication talisman and checked the message, he was shocked. The message was sent by Leng Enyang of the Red Dragon organization. The content of the message was simple. Moyan Wushang has been found. Come to life of luxury quickly. Zhuowen stood up abruptly. His breathing became hurried, and his eyes became much hotter. He had traveled thousands of mountains and rivers just to find Moyan Wushang. Now, he had finally received news about Moyan Wushang. How could he not be excited? But soon, Zhuowen calmed down. The timing of Leng Enyang's message was too coincidental. The day after he killed Ling Shunwei and Hikari, Leng Enyang sent him a message and asked him to go to Life of Luxury. One had to know that Zhuowen had offended two great families at the same time. He was at the center of the storm and was in a precarious situation. The King of Hell had already stated that no one was allowed to attack Zhuowen in Shuyang Divine City. However, this was only a verbal agreement, and no substantial action had been taken. The two great families could act first and report later. At that time, the King of Hell wouldn't offend the two great families for Zhuowen. But the news about Moyan Wushang made Zhuowen's heart move. Even if there's something fishy going on, I still have to go and take a look. Zhuowen stood up and walked out of the courtyard. He raised his head and looked in the direction of Life of Luxury. Young Master Zhuo, where are you going? Outside the courtyard, Li Shuo and Li Hong walked over. When they saw Zhuowen walk out, their eyes were filled with astonishment. I plan to go to Life of Luxury, Zhuowen said calmly. Li Shuo and Li Hong's faces changed. By young Master Zhuo, you can't do that. This is a special time. If you go out now, it's dangerous. Li Shuo's face. Li Hong also tried to persuade Zhuo when not to leave the Voidwalker family's territory. Zhuowen's face. But this matter is very important to me. Li Shuo and Li looked at each other's faces, had a looks face tea. Then we will discuss with the Patriarch and send some elite experts to go with you. Li Shuo said again. TT face, eyes face S faces. TTT, T his. T. Li Shuo and Li Hong wanted to follow, but they soon realized that the gap between their movement techniques and Zhuowen's was too big. They soon lost him. After Zhuowen left the Void family, he changed his appearance and used the primordial Grand Mist technique to change his aura. Only then did he walk towards Life of Luxury. Life of Luxury was still as bustling as before. Inside, there were a lot of girls and laughter. Shameful sun covers sleeves, sad spring makes me lazy to put on makeup. Priceless treasures are easy to find, but it's hard to find a lover. Zhuowen came to the door and whispered to the brothel keeper. The brothel keeper's wrinkled face changed slightly. She looked around and whispered to Zhuowen, "Follow me." Zhuowen silently followed the brothel keeper into Life of Luxury. After passing through a series of corridors, Zhuowen arrived at the same quiet courtyard from last time. The leisurely sound of a zither flowed slowly in the courtyard. It was like the sound of flowing water, and also like the chirping of birds in an empty valley. It was crisp and pleasing to the ear. In the depths of the courtyard, Leng Enyang was sitting in a pavilion beside a fake mountain. She was gently playing the zither. After she finished playing a song, she raised her head and looked at Zhuo who was walking towards her. She stood up and bowed. "Young Master Zhuo, we meet again. Please sit." Leng Enyang smiled. Zhuo nodded and walked to the pavilion. He sat opposite Leng Enyang. The brothel keeper who led the way left the courtyard tactfully. Leng Enyang personally poured a cup of fragrant tea and handed it to Zhuo. "Is your information true?" Zhuo asked indifferently. Lung Ernyang took a sip of tea and said, "The red dragon never goes back on his word. These are the results of our investigation. Young Master Zhuo, please take a look." As she spoke, Lung Ernyang handed Zhuo a jade slip. Zhuo did not suspect anything. He took the jade slip and used his divine sense to check it. There were several videos in the jade slip. The owner of the video was Moyan Wushang. Even though Zhuo had a strong heart, the moment he saw Moyan Wushang, his body trembled and his heart became extremely uneasy. These videos were all different scenes. They should have been secretly recorded by the people of the Red Dragon. Moyan Wushang was obviously unaware. Where is she? Zhuo retracted his divine sense and held the jade slip tightly in his hand. He raised his head and asked Lung Ernyang, "Hihi, young Master Zhuo, are you not going to give me the reward first? The rules of the Red Dragon are like this. I hope young Master Zhuo can forgive me." Lung Ernyang smiled faintly. Zhuo thought for a while and handed over the reward he had promised to Lung Ernyang. Lung Ernyang squinted her eyes and smiled. After checking carefully and confirming that there was no mistake, she looked at Zhuo and said, "The person you are looking for is living in the profound Saint Pavilion in the northwest of Shuyang Divine City. According to my informant, this woman has suffered serious injuries. During this time, she has been recuperating there. However, she seems to have encountered some trouble recently." After saying that, Lung Ernyang cleverly stopped talking and looked at Zhuo with a smile. "Encountered some trouble? What kind of trouble?" Zhuo asked with a sharp gaze. "You will know when you see it." "Why ask me?" Lung Ernyang replied faintly. Zhuo frowned slightly. He thought to himself that Lung Ernyang's attitude had changed really quickly. After receiving the reward, her attitude had undergone a 180-degree change. "Then I will take my leave." Zhuo stood up and strode out of the courtyard. However, just as he walked to the entrance of the courtyard, divine light circulated in the courtyard. The large array that was originally hidden in the courtyard suddenly activated, completely isolating the courtyard from the outside world. Zhuo stopped and slowly turned around. With a gloomy face, he looked at Lung Ernyang in the pavilion. "Lung Ernyang, what is the meaning of this?" Zhuo asked with a frown. Lung Ernyang walked out of the pavilion and said indifferently, "Young Master Zhuo, I am really sorry. Someone has offered me a high price to keep you here. This price is too high. I cannot refuse. So please wait here. I won't hurt you." Zhuowen's eyes became even colder. He looked at Lung Ernyang and said, "Is it Xu Jiering of the Xulong family or am I Hao Miao of the Xulong family?" Lung Ernyang smiled and said, "We, the Red Dragon, will not casually reveal the privacy of our client." Zhuo smiled. "Will not casually reveal the privacy of others? Then wouldn't the news of him, Zhuo, be leaked by the Red Dragon? Now, he was even being kept here." Lung Ernyang's words were really laughable. Chapter 44-49. Release the array and let me leave. Otherwise, I will tear down your stronghold. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he looked at Lung Ernyang and said word by word. Lung Ernyang frowned slightly. She didn't know why, but the moment she met Zhuowen's eyes, she felt a little scared. "Mufeng, I know your strength is extraordinary. Back then, you easily killed Ling Shunwei and Hikari. I estimate that your strength should be equivalent to the intermediate ancient starlight realm. However, I'm stronger than you, and I've set up a powerful formation in my courtyard. Can you tear it down?" Lung Ernyang raised her chin slightly and tapped her right foot forward. Her body was surrounded by dazzling starlight, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Late ancient starlight realm, Zhuo narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Lung Ernyang's cultivation to be so strong. She was actually a late ancient starlight realm expert. With Lung Ernyang's strength and the third sky of eternal realm array around the courtyard, it was no wonder that she was so confident. Unfortunately, she met Zhuo. Zhuo had already noticed the array in the courtyard the last time he came. It was at most an early third sky of eternal realm array. It couldn't stump him at all. As for Lung Ernyang wanting to stop him, Zhuo could only sneer in his heart. Now, he had the chariot, and his speed was unparalleled in the world. Even if an expert like Mi Hao Miao came in person, Zhuowen was confident that he could escape. Lung Enyang, you will regret this, Zhuowen said slowly. Billowing devil qi surged out and surrounded his body. He instantly entered the state of demonic corruption. Boom, boom, boom. 3 huge cosmic images appeared in the void behind Zhuowen. At the same time, the array in the courtyard was instantly activated. Runes flowing with divine brilliance swept across the courtyard like swimming fish. The 3 cosmic images stood in the courtyard, but they were blocked by the array. They couldn't step out of the courtyard at all. I said, you can't tear down this stronghold of mine. As long as this array is here, the outside world won't find out what happened here. Lung Enyang shook her head. The starlight around her suddenly became resplendent. A huge ancient celestial body walked out from the void behind her. Boom, boom. The heaven-defying ancient constellation leaped into the boundless void, clashing against the 3 cosmic law manifestations. Terrifying auras gushed out in all directions, yet they were all blocked by the grand formation. The late ancient star light stage cultivator was indeed powerful. Zhuowen's 3 10,000 Zhongdharma forms were faintly at a disadvantage. Lung Enyang's eyes gleamed with coldness as she spoke, I've still underestimated you. To think that your cosmic law form is so powerful to such an extent, to be able to fight against my heaven-defying ancient constellation to such an extent. Truly impressive. However, you are still no match for me. Since you don't want to wait, then don't blame me for being impolite. As she spoke, Lung Enyang's pure white palm gently opened up in the void, and an emerald green treasured fan appeared in her palm. The treasured fan was completely emerald green, sparkling and translucent like glass, and it circulated with a shocking surging aura. Whoosh, whoosh. Lung Enyang gently waved the treasured fan towards Zhuowen. Surging emerald green gales swept out, turning into huge green divine pythons that coiled towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen took out the Taiyu Saint sword and slashed out. The pitch-black sword light was like streaks of black lightning, slashing apart the divine pythons one after another. Divine wind raging waves. The moment Zhuowen slashed apart the last divine python, Lung Enyang appeared above him. She took out the treasured fan in her hand and executed a divine ability. With Zhuowen as the center, the ground within a radius of several hundred feet suddenly sank, turning into a green water surface. Terrifying green waves suddenly burst out from the water, and the green divine wind whistled down from the sky. The 2 worked together and enveloped Zhuowen. Demonic flame. A calm voice sounded in the midst of the divine wind and waves. Scarlet flames suddenly burst out and burned the surrounding divine wind and violent waves. Zhuowen took a step forward, shook the Taiyu Saint sword in his hand, and slashed towards Lung Enyang not far away. Lung Enyang's face sank. She used the treasured fan to deal with Zhuowen's attack, but her heart sank to the bottom. It seemed that she had really underestimated Zhuowen. This boy's strength was stronger than she had expected. Peerless divine lightning array. Zhuowen held the sword in his right hand and tangled with Lung Enyang. His left hand took out array discs and quickly arranged the peerless divine lightning array. In just a few breaths, the peerless divine lightning array was successfully arranged, enveloping Lung Enyang. Rolling thunderbolts endlessly fell on Lung Enyang's body, causing her to resist in a panic and couldn't help but retreat. A 3rd sky of eternal realm array? Lung Enyang's beautiful eyes were filled with horror the moment she came into contact with the divine thunderbolts from the peerless divine lightning array. This formation was so powerful, it was even more powerful than the one in her courtyard. You're a divine array master at the 3rd sky of eternal realm? Lung Enyang looked at Zhuowen with an ugly face. Zhuowen didn't answer Lung Enyang. He withdrew from the peerless divine lightning array, took out array flags, and began to crack the array in the courtyard. If he guessed correctly, the person who colluded with Lung Enyang behind the scenes would come soon. He had to leave here as soon as possible. The thunderbolts of the peerless divine lightning array grew stronger and stronger, and finally condensed into a huge thunder god phantom. After Zhuowen's divine soul advanced to the ancient starlight realm, his array Dao had also improved, from the early 3rd sky of eternal realm to the middle stage. This time, He used the thunder source array to arrange the peerless divine lightning array, which was more powerful than before. Even a late-stage ancient starlight realm expert like Lung Earnyang would be in danger if she stayed inside for too long. As soon as the thunder god phantom appeared, Lung Earnyang's situation immediately became difficult. Crack. In just a few breaths, the array in the courtyard was cracked by Zhuowen. Lung Earnyang, you said I couldn't destroy your stronghold. Now, take a look. As soon as the array in the courtyard was broken, Zhuowen jumped tens of thousands of feet high. His palm clenched the sword hilt, and he used a divine ability. Heaven and Earth Hong Meng A Silver Lining Heaven, a sword light that penetrated the heaven and earth soared into the sky, and then fell fiercely, falling into the life of luxury. With a loud bang, the huge life of luxury was quickly destroyed and collapsed under the terrifying sword light. Many men and women in the life of luxury didn't even have time to show their fear before they were completely annihilated by the sword light. Lung Earnyang looked at all this, and her face became pale. This stronghold was one of the most important strongholds of the Red Dragon organization. Now, it was destroyed by Zhuowen. The Red Dragon could be said to have suffered a heavy loss. Lung Earnyang was furious, and her killing intent was like lightning, but she couldn't do anything to Zhuowen. Because she was trapped in the peerless divine lightning array, passively resisting the terrifying attack of the thunder god phantom. But soon, Lung Earnyang felt that something was wrong. Because, after Zhuowen used the Heaven and Earth Primordial One line to destroy the life of luxury below, he raised the divine sword in his hand again. Sword shaking the 9 heavens. Life in the morning, death in the evening. Zhuowen slashed out twice in a row, and 2 terrifying divine abilities swept over, quickly bombarding the peerless divine lightning array below. Chapter 4450. Lung Earnyang's eyes narrowed. She felt a strong sense of danger as she looked at the rapidly approaching divine ability. At this moment, she was entangled with the thunder god's phantom and was at a disadvantage. Zhuowen's 2 divine abilities were like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was enough to completely crush her. Boom, boom, boom. In the end, the 2 divine abilities fell, and the courtyard around Lung Earnyang turned into ruins. Lung Earnyang let out a shrill scream. After Zhuowen slashed out 2 divine abilities, he didn't even look at Lung Earnyang's situation and quickly left the place, heading northwest of the divine city. About an hour after Zhuowen left, 2 stalwart figures swept over. Behind these 2 stalwart figures, there was an army of cultivators with powerful auras following behind them. Upon closer inspection, the 2 stalwart figures were Xu Jieying, the head of the Xulong family, and Mi Haomiao, the head of the Xulong family. Life of luxury has been destroyed. Mi Haomiao narrowed his eyes and looked at the ruins in front of him with an ugly expression. Lung Earnyang. Xu Jieying's eyes were like torches. He immediately saw a large array filled with lightning in the ruins. Lung Earnyang was trapped in the array. Her body was covered in wounds and she was on the verge of death. It was obvious that she couldn't hold on any longer. Xu Jieying waved his sleeve, and a powerful golden energy turned into a huge palm that fell and blasted the surface of the peerless thunder god array. A deafening sound resounded, and the peerless thunder god array was shattered into countless pieces. Lung Earnyang spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed on the ground, panting. Lung Earnyang, where's Zhuowen? Mi Haomiao asked with a frown as he transferred his divine power into Lung Earnyang's body. After receiving Mi Haomiao's divine power, Lung Earnyang's condition improved. She gritted her teeth and said, "We've underestimated him. He's also a divine array master at the 3rd sky of the Eternal Realm. He easily dispelled the grand array that was set up in the courtyard in advance, and even set up this grand array to trap me in an instant." Xu Jieying and Mi Haomiao looked at each other and saw the coldness in each other's eyes. "Now, where did he go?" Xu Jieying asked coldly. "He should have gone to the profound sacred pavilion, because the person he's looking for is there." Lung Earnyang answered honestly. "Now, leave this place first. The commotion here is too big. The King of Hell's men will be here soon. If you're discovered, you won't be able to escape even if you want to," Mi Haomiao said. Lung Earnyang hurriedly got up and bowed to the 2 of them. Then, she quickly left the ruins of the life of luxury. After Lung Ernyang left, Xu Jieying and Mi Haomiao also didn't stay for long. They quietly left, heading in the direction of the Profound Saint Pavilion. The Profound Saint Pavilion was a rather famous inn in the northwest of Void Flame Divine City. When Zhuoan arrived at the periphery of the Profound Sacred Pavilion, he discovered that the Profound Sacred Pavilion covered an extremely large area. At a glance, it was hundreds of thousands of acres large. Inside the Profound Sacred Pavilion, there were many pavilions of different sizes. It was said that the deeper one went into the Profound Saint Pavilion, the denser the primal chaos energy was. Of course, it was also more expensive. Zhuoan arrived at the Profound Sacred Pavilion, entered the entrance, and came to the main hall. In the main hall, there were many counters. At the counters were young and beautiful female cultivators who were receiving many customers who were preparing to check in. Zhuoan found a relatively empty counter. The female cultivator at the counter was slightly plump. "Esteemed guest, is there anything I can do for you?" The plump female cultivator revealed a polite smile as she looked at Zhuoan and asked, "Is there someone called Moyan Wushang in your Profound Sacred Pavilion?" Zhuoan suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked. After hearing Moyan Wushang's name, the plump female cultivator's expression suddenly became unnatural. There was even some vigilance between her brows. "Esteemed guest, why are you looking for Moyan Wushang?" the plump female cultivator asked cautiously. Zhuoan frowned slightly. With his keen observation, he naturally saw the unnatural expression on the plump female cultivator's face. "I'm Moyan Wushang's friend. I'm here to look for him," Zhuoan said. The plump female cultivator frowned. She looked around vigilantly and then whispered to Zhuoan, "Esteemed guest, I advise you to leave. Don't look for this woman. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble." Zhuoan narrowed his eyes and took out a universe divine pill. He handed it to the female cultivator and said, "If you tell me the location of Moyan Wushang, this universe divine pill is yours." The moment the plump female cultivator saw the universe divine pill, her eyes emitted a blazing light. Her cultivation had already reached the peak of the ancient star transformation and was not far from the great tribulation of heaven and earth. The temptation of the universe divine pill was too great for her. How could she refuse? "No problem." The plump female cultivator nodded repeatedly and agreed without hesitation. "Speak." Zhuoan played with the universe divine pill and said indifferently, "Moyan Wushang is in pavilion number 370 of the second layer of heaven. Esteemed guest, if you want to find him, you can go there." At this point, the plump female cultivator hesitated for a moment and continued, "However, I don't recommend you to find him now." "Why?" As Zhuoan spoke, he threw the universe divine pill to the female cultivator. The plump female cultivator took the divine pill, checked it, and then secretly put it away. "It's like this." Old man Shenming took a fancy to this woman and wanted to take her as a furnace. But she refused and offended old man Shenming. Under the narration of the plump female cultivator, Zhuoan finally understood Moyan Wushang's current troubles. Old man Shenming was a famous expert in the northwest region of the Void Flame Divine City. Although he was a rogue cultivator, he was very popular and had connections with many major forces in the northwest region. In addition, Old man Shenming was a powerful expert in the late stage of the inverse ancient starlight realm. Therefore, no one dared to provoke him in the northwest region of the Divine City. Old man Shenming usually lived in the 9th layer of Profound Saint Pavilion. This was the best area of Profound Saint Pavilion. Whether it was service or chaotic energy, it was the best in Profound Saint Pavilion. Old man Shenming accidentally met Moyan Wushang in Profound Saint Pavilion and was shocked. Seeing that Moyan Wushang had no power or influence, he had evil thoughts and wanted to forcibly take her as a furnace. Of course, Moyan Wushang flatly refused. Old man Shenming was furious and attacked Moyan Wushang, injuring the latter. The injured Moyan Wushang hid in his attic. However, Old man Shenming sent people to guard outside Moyan Wushang's attic and colluded with the higher-ups of Profound Saint Pavilion to cut off the energy supply to Moyan Wushang's attic. Once the energy supply was lost, Moyan Wushang would not only be unable to cultivate but also find it difficult to heal. Moyan Wushang could not leave the attic because once he came out, Old Man Shenming would personally take action, which would be even more dangerous. Old Man Shenming? You're really courting death. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with killing intent. He strode out of the hall and walked toward the 8th layer of Profound Saint Pavilion. Seeing Zhuowen so impulsive, the plump female cultivator could not help but shake her head. Although Zhuowen's aura was much stronger than hers, she could also see that the former should only have the cultivation of cosmic manifestation. With such cultivation, how could he compete with Old Man Shenming? Wasn't he courting death? Chapter 4451. The profound sacred pavilion was vast and was divided into 9 regions, from the 1st heaven to the 9th heaven. The 1st heaven region was the worst region of the profound sacred pavilion. Whether it was the energy supply or the service, it was the worst. The 9th heaven region was the best region, enjoying the densest energy and the best service. Of course, the price was also extremely high, and ordinary cultivators could not afford to live there. Outside pavilion number 370 of the 2nd heaven, 2 cultivators sat cross-legged in front of the door. Not far away, many people had gathered. They were all cultivators living in the profound sacred pavilion. At this moment, they were all pointing at the 2 cultivators blocking the door of the pavilion. It's Old Man Shenming's 2 most outstanding disciples, Xian Yi and Xian Li. Why are the 2 of them blocking the door? You don't know? It's said that Old Man Shenming took a fancy to the female cultivator in pavilion number 370 and wanted to take her as a cultivation vessel, but the latter refused. Later, she was injured by Old Man Shenming and went into seclusion. Xian Yi and Xian Li were sent to guard her. This woman is really unlucky. Old Man Shenming is notorious. Anyone who is taken as a cultivation vessel by him will not live for long. The 2 cultivators sitting cross-legged looked rather young. One of them, a young man with a hooked nose, slowly opened his malicious eyes. He looked at the closed door and sneered, "This woman is really tough. She has been hiding in the pavilion for 10 days and 10 nights. She still hasn't come out. The energy supply of the profound sacred pavilion has been cut off. She can neither cultivate nor heal. The longer she stays in there, the weaker she will be." The other young man with a round face said doubtfully, "Senior brother Xian Yi, with master's strength, he can force his way into the pavilion and kidnap the woman. Why is there a need to go through so much trouble?" The man with a hooked nose called Xian Yi said indifferently, "Xian Li, you have to look far into everything. Master wants this woman to come out on her knees and beg for mercy. Once this woman is exhausted, she will naturally surrender for her life. This is master's goal." Xian Li suddenly understood and said, as expected of senior brother Xian Yi, "You understand master's deep meaning." Suddenly, the sound of crisp footsteps came from the corridor outside the profound sacred pavilion. In the beginning, the crowd did not pay much attention to it. However, when they discovered that the footsteps were getting closer and closer, and the speed was getting faster and faster, it finally attracted the attention of many people. A young man in a black robe was walking toward them. His target was pavilion number 370 in front of them. He was Zhuowen, who had rushed over from the profound sacred pavilion's hall. Xian Yi and Xian Li frowned slightly. They naturally noticed the sudden appearance of this uninvited guest. "Who are you? Stop right there." Xian Li stood up and looked at the young man walking towards him with a displeased expression. "Is this the number 370 pavilion of the 2nd heaven?" Zhuowen stopped and looked at Xian Yi and Xian Li in front of the door. "Of course. This is not a place you can set foot in. If you're a tenant here, then scram back to your place." Xian Yi's eyes were dark. He looked at Zhuowen and his tone was not polite at all. "Oh, who do you think you are? Is he the owner of this pavilion?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. Xian Yi snorted coldly. "Although I'm not the owner of this pavilion, the women in this pavilion are our master's cultivation vessels. They are his private property. As his disciples, we have some rights. Since you're not the owner of this pavilion, then scram. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to leave later," Zhuowen said expressionlessly. How dare you? Are you provoking us?" Xian Yi stood up abruptly and released his aura. Xian Yi's cultivation has improved so quickly. He's already at the peak of the cosmic Dharma plane. As expected of a disciple who has followed Old Man Shenming for so many years. He must have received Old Man Shenming's true teachings. When Xian Yi's aura was released, many of the surrounding cultivators subconsciously stepped back and looked at Xian Yi with fear. Xian Li also stepped forward and stood side by side with Xian Yi. He also released his aura. Xian Li's cultivation was not weak either. He had reached the late stage of the cosmic Dharma plane and was only a small realm away from Xian Yi. Are you trying to intimidate me? The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He took a step forward, and a violent aura exploded out like a sudden clap of thunder. Xian Yi and Xian Li's pupils shrank. The aura that they had worked so hard to release was instantly dispersed by Zhuo Wen's aura. What? This aura. Xian Yi and Xian Li's expressions changed drastically and their hearts beat rapidly. Boom. Zhuo Wen suddenly took a step forward and rushed toward the two like a bolt of lightning. Bastard. Xian Yi and Xian Li roared and released their cosmic Dharma planes to attack Zhuo Wen at the same time. Scram. Zhuo Wen's expression was cold and his footsteps did not stop. However, a giant white-haired, red-faced ape emerged from the void behind him. Compared to the giant ape, Xian Yi and Xian Li's Dharma planes were too small. They were only about the size of the giant ape's leg. The giant ape roared and reached out with both hands to grab Xian Yi and Xian Li's Dharma planes and squeezed. Xian Yi and Xian Li's Dharma planes were crushed like tofu by the giant ape. Countless specks of light scattered, dazzling and mournful. How can your cosmic Dharma planes be so powerful? Xian Li and Xian Yi groaned as blood flowed from their mouths and noses. They looked at the terrifying giant ape behind Zhuo Wen in horror, their eyes filled with fear. If you don't scram, then die. Zhuo Wen swept over like a hurricane, brushing past the two of them. Xian Yi and Xian Li froze on the spot like ice cubes. A huge bloody hole appeared between their eyebrows. Two purple gold sword wills flew out and circled around Zhuo Wen. The onlookers then realized that the young man who had suddenly appeared had a purple gold light shining between his eyebrows. Clearly, the two strange sword wills were an extremely powerful spiritual attack. Xian Yi and Xian Li's spiritual attack had shattered their spiritual souls and completely destroyed them. Bang! Bang! Xian Li and Xian Yi fell heavily to the ground. Countless drops of blood splattered out and their auras gradually disappeared. Zhuo Wen did not even look at the two of them. He stepped forward and walked to the door of the loft. Wu Shong. Zhuo Wen suppressed the emotions in his heart and called out softly. He knew that Moyan Wu Shong could hear him. Silence lingered inside and outside the loft. It was as if time had completely stopped at this moment. Zhuo Wen, you've finally found your way here. Why are you so persistent? After a long silence, a faint voice came from the loft. Zhuo Wen was too familiar with this voice. Because the owner of the voice was Moyan Wu Shong. There are some fetters that I can't cut off. There are some memories that I can't forget. You are one of the most important people to me. Why do you think I'm so persistent? Come back, Chen Shui, Brother Han Tian, my parents and everyone you know, they are all waiting for you. Zhuo Wen took a deep breath and spoke softly. Every word was filled with affection and sincerity. He had been hiding these words for a long time. Today, he finally said them out loud. Chapter 44-52. Silence. There was another moment of silence. In the attic, the decoration was elegant and antique. In front of the rosewood table, there was a guqin. In front of the guqin, a beautiful woman hugged her knees with both hands. She stared at the guqin in a daze. Tears fell silently from her eyes, streaking across her cheeks and dripping onto her white arms. Her face was filled with joy, fear, nervousness, and a trace of expectation. Back then, she and Zhuo Wen had met in the Ruthless and Desireless Pearl, but they had also separated in the Ruthless and Desireless Pearl. After so many years, she had seen Zhuo Wen again, and her feelings were complicated. Creak. In the attic, the closed door slowly opened. In front of the door, Zhuo Wen smiled. The moment he was about to step into the attic, there was a terrifying sound of wind breaking behind him. Zhuowen's eyes were as cold as a knife. He turned around and punched behind him. Bang! The two fists collided, creating layers upon layers of energy ripples, shaking the surrounding space to the point of shattering. The attic number 370 instantly collapsed. Zhuowen jumped up and floated in the air. In the ruins of the attic, there was a clear sound of a guqin. A beautiful woman in a purple dress gently plucked the strings. She was like a lotus flower, floating out of the water. The sound of the guqin surrounded the woman like armor, protecting her in the middle. Wushang, your injuries. Zhuowen looked at the beautiful woman floating to his side and frowned slightly. He could see that Moyan Wushang's cultivation should have reached the early stage of the inverse ancient starlight realm. However, her injuries were extremely serious, causing her realm to decline toward the cosmic Laksana. Oh, little beauty, it seems that I was too harsh last time. Your injuries are even more serious. Looking at your pale little face, this old man's heart aches to death. Suddenly, there was an old and cold voice in front of him. Zhuowen looked in the direction of the voice. An old man in sackcloth was floating in front of him. He stared at Moyan Wushang with a pair of sinister eyes. Zhuowen already understood that it was this old man who had suddenly launched a sneak attack on him. It's old man Shen Ming. He is indeed nearby. He must have sensed the commotion here and rushed over so quickly. The surrounding people whispered to each other and retreated one after another. They only stopped when they were at a safe enough distance. Viciousness flashed in Zhuowen's eyes. He looked coldly at the old man and asked, "Were you the one who injured Wushang?" Only then did the old man's gaze fall onto Zhuowen. He said mockingly, "Little bastard, your strength is not bad. You were actually able to withstand my attack. But in the end, you're just a cosmic manifestation. How dare you play the hero in front of me with such little cultivation? Are you tired of living?" As he spoke, the old man's gaze fell on Xian Yi and Xian Li's corpses, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. "Did you kill Xian Yi and Xian Li?" The old man suppressed his anger and asked. "They're just two pieces of trash. They can't even take a single move from me," Zhuowen said calmly. "Little bastard, you deserve to die." The old man was furious. Bright starlight burst out from his body, and an aura that far surpassed the cosmic manifestation swept out like a hurricane. Boom! A terrifying explosive sound rang out as the space behind the old man tore apart. A gigantic ancient celestial body slowly stepped out from the void. In an instant, many of the surrounding cultivators were suppressed by the aura of the inverse ancient celestial body. Their breathing became rapid, and their faces and ears turned red. Zhuowen, he is old man Shen Ming. His cultivation has reached the middle stage of the inverse ancient celestial body. The current you is still no match for him. I will deal with him. You run first. I will catch up with you later. Moyan Wushang's jade-like feet touched the ground, and she stood in front of Zhuowen. Her jade-like hands moved gently, and the energy condensed by the colorful musical notes was like a hurricane in front of her, forming an impregnable defense. Zhuowen's eyes softened. He patted Moyan Wushang's shoulder and said, "Wushang, leave this person to me. I said that I won't let you suffer any more grievances. I will help you solve everything." Moyan Wushang gently turned her head and looked deeply at Zhuowen. Finally, she nodded gently and retreated to Zhuowen's side. "Little bastard. I thought you would hide behind a woman. I didn't expect you to be so courageous." The old man's eyes were filled with anger. He looked coldly at Zhuowen. Xian Yi and Xian Li were his favorite disciples. Now, they were both killed by Zhuowen. He couldn't wait to tear Zhuowen into pieces. Zhuowen looked into the distance, and then looked at the old man and said, "Old man, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Now, I am in a hurry. If you know what's good for you, break your own limbs and let Wushang punish you." Zhuowen was very impatient. Old man Shunming's cultivation was only at the middle stage of the inverse ancient celestial body. For Zhuowen, he was not a big threat. What he was most afraid of now was that if he wasted too much time here, the mastermind behind Lung Ernyang would come in time. "Arrogant brat, you are courting death. Old man Shenming was enraged. He took a step forward, his white beard fluttering. The ancient star constellation behind him took large strides forward. Resplendent astral light adorned the surroundings, forming a strange domain, trapping Zhuo Wen and the others within. Zhuo Wen snorted coldly and released 3 cosmic avatars. The 3 cosmic forms roared and fought with old man Shenming's inverse ancient celestial body. What? You have 3 cosmic forms, but you are still evenly matched with my inverse ancient celestial body. Old man Shenming saw the terrifying battle in the void, and his pupils shrank. He couldn't help but exclaim. Zhuowen was expressionless. He entered the state of demonic corruption, and billowing demonic energy wrapped around him. On the other hand, he shot out like an arrow that left the bow, rumbling as he charged towards old man Shenming. He gripped the Taiyu sacred sword tightly in his right palm, and streaks of divine soul sword intent floated around him. In his eyes, a strange scarlet flame spewed out, shooting out like an angry dragon, enveloping old man Shenming. Old man Shenming didn't dare to be careless. He took out 18 divine sabers and slashed out. Every saber light emitted a bright light, as if stars had exploded. Its power was extremely great. The demonic flames swept over, but it couldn't burn the divine sabers to ashes for a moment. Instead, it was blocked. Bang! 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 However, the divine soul sword intent that followed was like a swarm of locusts, blasting over and slashing on the 18 divine sabers. The divine sabers suddenly dimmed, and they were constantly forced back. Heaven and earth primordial one line, sword shaking the 9 heavens. At the same time, Zhuowen rushed over like a bolt of black lightning. The Taiyu sacred sword slashed twice, and 2 divine abilities pierced through. Crack! The defense formed by the 18 divine sabers was instantly broken. Endless energy swept over, drowning old man Shenming. Old man Shenming was caught off guard, and he was sent flying by the energy torrent, landing heavily on the ground. Boom! Boom! The entire profound saint pavilion trembled. The second heaven area was blasted into countless pieces by the aftermath of old man Shenming's fall. More than 70% of the buildings were turned into ruins. Chapter 4453. Who is causing trouble in profound sacred pavilion? An angry roar came from the depths of profound sacred pavilion, and then 3 figures with powerful auras rushed over. Whoosh! 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 The 3 figures were extremely fast, and they appeared in the second heaven area of profound sacred pavilion like lightning, surrounding Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang. It's the 3 founders of profound sacred pavilion, the 3 elders of profound sacred pavilion. Because the commotion in profound sacred pavilion was too big, all the tenants in profound sacred pavilion were alarmed, and they all walked out of their respective pavilions. When they saw the 3 figures rushing out, they all showed a look of dread. Zhuowen's eyes turned slightly, and he looked at the 3 old men surrounding him. Their auras were extremely powerful, especially the old man in green in front of him. His aura was the strongest, and he was much stronger than old man Shenming. Late-stage ancient star light realm? Zhuowen frowned slightly, thinking that this profound sacred pavilion was really not simple. It actually had such a powerhouse behind it. In addition to the old man in green, the auras of the other 2 old men were also not weak, and they were not weaker than old man Shenming. They were mid-stage ancient star light realm powerhouses. As soon as the 3 elders of profound sacred pavilion arrived, they immediately noticed old man Shenming, who had fallen into the ruins, and their pupils shrank. Old man Shenming was defeated. Was it done by this young man in front of them? Who are you? Why are you causing trouble in my profound sacred pavilion? The old man in green was not in a hurry to make a move. He looked at Zhuowen and asked calmly. With old man Shenming as an example, the old man in green was extremely cautious and did not dare to act rashly. Zhuowen, Zhuowen said slowly, and the surroundings instantly boiled. Zhuowen? Is it the Zhuowen who killed Ling Shenwei and Hikari by himself? This is a ruthless person. He even killed the geniuses of the Shulong and Shuli families. If virtual Corona hadn't prepared the Eye of the Void in advance, I'm afraid she would have died in his hand. Ever since the battle where Zhuo Wen had advanced to the Cosmos Avatar level, Zhuo Wen's name had spread throughout the entire Void Yang Divine City. After hearing Zhuo Wen say his real name, the three elders of Profound Sacred Pavilion sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder old man Shenming was defeated so miserably. It turned out that this boy was a ruthless person. So it's brother Zhuo. Sorry for not greeting you. We have been negligent this time. The green-robed old man cupped his hands, and his tone immediately became much more polite. At the same time, he gave the other two elders a look, and the three of them immediately withdrew from the encirclement. The Profound Saint Pavilion was a relatively large force in the northwestern region of the Void Yang Divine City. However, in the entire Divine City, it could only be considered a second-rate force. Zhuo Wen even dared to offend the three great families and was still alive. Obviously, he wasn't someone that their profound sacred pavilion could casually provoke. In the deep pit in the ruins, old man Shenming was bleeding from his 7 orifices as he struggled with all his might. His eyes stared fixedly at Zhuo Wen's figure above as despair rose in his heart. He understood that he was done for. Boom! After the 3 profound saint elders withdrew their encirclement, Zhuo Wen took a step forward. The 3 Dharma idols in the sky lifted their giant feet and stomped towards the deep pit where old man Shenming was. No, mercy! Old man Shenming let out his final sorrowful cry, but soon, as the earth shook violently, he was completely annihilated. The eyelids of the 3 profound sage elders twitched, and they became even more afraid of Zhuo Wen. This kid acted decisively, ruthlessly, and without the slightest hesitation. Moyan Wushang's beautiful eyes moved. She glanced at the young man beside her and sighed in her heart. When we meet again, I'm still not as good as him. After killing old man Shenming, Zhuo Wen pulled Moyan Wushang's hand and said, "We can't stay here for long. Come with me." Moyan Wushang nodded gently. Suddenly, her mind shook, and she raised her head to look at the sky in the southeast direction. There, 2 suffocating auras shot over like 2 rainbows. Not only Moyan Wushang, but Zhuo Wen, the 3 profound saint elders, and all the cultivators in the Profound Saint Pavilion looked up in shock. All of them were frightened, and the corners of their eyes twitched. In the blink of an eye, the 2 auras arrived at the Profound Saint Pavilion and locked onto the entire area. Surging killing intent was like magma erupting from a volcano, drowning everyone in it. In the Profound Saint Pavilion, many cultivators with low cultivation couldn't help but kneel on the ground with blood flowing from their mouths and noses. This aura was too strong, and they couldn't bear it. Zhuo Wen raised his head and saw it, and his eyes darkened. 2 mighty cultivator armies descended from the sky above the Profound Saint Pavilion. The 2 people in the lead were Xu Jieying and Mi Haomiao. They hovered in the sky with their hands behind their backs, coldly looking down at Zhuo Wen. That gaze was as if they were looking at a dead person. The 3 profound saint elders greet the 2 lords. The green-robed elder brought the other 2 elders and hurriedly knelt on the ground, trembling as they kowtowed. Their hearts were filled with apprehension. To them, Xu Jieying and Mi Haomiao were like true dragons in the sky, unreachable. The 2 of them had come together with 2 mighty cultivator armies, and it scared them out of their wits. The patriarchs of the Xulong and Xuli families? Moyan Wushang's beautiful eyes widened. Although she hadn't stayed in Xuyang Divine City for long, she had a basic understanding of the distribution of the major forces here. The 3 aristocratic families were second only to the illusory king of hell. Moreover, the patriarchs of the 3 great families were top experts at the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, and they wouldn't easily make a move. This time, the 2 of them had personally made a move. Could it be for Zhuo Wen? Thinking of this, Moyan Wushang glanced at Zhuo Wen again, feeling somewhat bitter in her heart. The 2 of them had just met, and they had already encountered such a desperate situation. It was really fate that made fools of people. However, being able to die together with him might not be a bad ending. Moyan Wushang reached out in a daze, her fair and slender palm holding Zhuo Wen's right hand tightly. Zhuo Wen, do you know your crimes? You killed Hikari and Ling Shenwei from our 2 great families, and you even wantonly killed our younger generation geniuses. Your crimes are grave, and death is not enough. Mi Haomiao spoke slowly, his voice as majestic as the heavens, mixed with anger and hatred. Mi Liang and virtual Corona are the ones who deserved to die. If they hadn't tried to kill me during my tribulation, they wouldn't have died. Don't tell me you want me to not resist at that time and let them kill me without retaliating. Zhuowen replied sternly and fearlessly. You are guilty to begin with. It's not wrong for them to kill you. But you killed them, which is a serious crime. Xu Jieying was expressionless as she stared at Zhuowen and spoke coldly. Zhuowen smiled. This Xu Jieying was really unreasonable. Logically speaking, he was the victim. Now, he was the one who had committed a crime and should be killed. He didn't even have the right to resist. The three elders secretly heaved a sigh of relief when they learned that the patriarchs of the two great families hadn't come for them. They quietly retreated and looked at Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang with pity in their eyes. They knew that the two of them couldn't escape even if they had wings. Two experts at the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth had come together, and they had brought along so many elites. Even if the two of them had the ability to reach the heavens, there was nothing they could do. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 44-54. Little bastard, give up and let me capture you. Otherwise, you will die. Mi Haomiao gloomily looked down at Zhuowen. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. Zhuowen remained calm. He could feel Moyan Wushang's body trembling. He turned his head and smiled at her. Wushang, don't worry. Don't worry, with me around, nothing will happen to you. No one will be able to hurt you. Moyan Wushang looked at Zhuowen silently. Suddenly, she smiled and nodded her head. He was still the same person as before. No matter what kind of difficulties you faced, he would always be able to help you. She naturally chose to believe in him. Little bastard, how dare you ignore me? You are courting death. Mi Haomiao's eyes were as cold as a knife. He formed a palm with his right hand and slammed it down. Boom. A vast and unparalleled aura enveloped an area of several hundred miles like countless streams of water vapor. In an instant, the area within hundreds of miles was completely sealed off by this terrifying aura, forming a sealed space. Moyan Wushang's body trembled. She suddenly felt that her body was bound by a strange power. She stood rooted to the ground, unable to move at all. It was too strong. It was much stronger than the ancient starlight. Was this the power of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth? Moyan Wushang was filled with despair. However, Zhuowen remained calm. As the terrifying power of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth extended towards him, he flipped his right hand gently. A sparkling and translucent crystal ball appeared in his palm. Upon closer inspection, the shape of the crystal ball looked like an eyeball. The pupil and the white of the eye were separated. It was very lifelike, as though it was a living eyeball. Eye of the Void. Mi Haomiao naturally saw the eyeball-like crystal ball in Zhuowen's palm. His face instantly turned gloomy. Ka. The moment the Eye of the Void was activated, the space around Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang shattered. An unknown force wrapped around them and dragged them into the depths of the shattered space. Xu Jieying, stop them. Mi Haomiao suddenly clenched his right fist, causing the space within a few hundred miles of him to crumble. However, he knew that Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang had used the Eyes of the Void to escape. Therefore, he immediately shouted at Xu Jieying, who was beside him. Xu Jieying's eyes flashed. The moment Mi Haomiao reminded him, he tapped the air with his right hand. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, the void in front of Xu Jieying cracked open with a huge gully. The ravine in the void grew longer and longer, and it spread faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it streaked across the northwestern horizon of Void Inferno Divine City. In the void more than 10 miles away from the profound sacred pavilion, a gully split open as some kind of mysterious force exploded, and two figures were forced out. Poochie. Zhuowen groaned as blood flowed from his mouth and nose. His body was surrounded by layers of spiritual sword intent, and within it, the Grand Imperial Seal was emitting a dazzling golden light. The moment Xu Jieying made his move, he immediately felt a sense of danger. Therefore, He took out the Grand Imperial Seal and spiritual sword intent. The spiritual sword intent surrounding Zhuowen suddenly exploded, unable to withstand the power of Xu Jiaying's finger. The difference is too great. This lad can't possibly be a match for the two patriarchs. The three profound sacred elders looked at the terrifying gullies in the sky, and their respect for the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth grew. Give up. Xu Jiaying's face was cold. He gently swiped the sword with his right hand, and the surrounding laws of heaven and earth obeyed his command, turning into spears of laws that pierced through the air toward Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang. Zhuowen took a deep breath. This move was too powerful, and he couldn't take it. However, he didn't panic, because he now had a simplified version of the Chariot of Chariot. Zhuowen was confident that Xu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao would not be able to catch up to him with the mystical chariot. When Zhuowen was about to bring out the Chariot of Chariots, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the void to his left. There stood a figure with his hands behind his back. Bang bang bang! An invisible barrier appeared in front of Zhuowen, blocking the law spears one after another. Xu Jiaying's eyes narrowed. He and Mi Haomiao looked at the space to the left of Zhuowen at the same time. Naturally, they also saw the figure standing there. This was a white-haired old man in a long robe. He stood in the air, and his eyes were powerful and sharp as if they contained lightning. Elder Anshi. The moment he saw the old man, Zhuowen's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. He naturally knew this old man. He was Old Man Anshi, who was in charge of the Void Yama divine ranking. Back then, when he challenged the Void Yama divine list, it was this old man who arranged it for him. At that time, he felt that this old man was not ordinary, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Xu Jiaying was an early-stage lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert. Since Old Man Anshi could easily block his attack, he must be at least an early-stage lawful embodiment of heaven and earth cultivator. Xu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao were both confused and fearful. Anshi, what do you mean by this? Xu Jiaying asked, his voice as cold as a venomous snake. He stared coldly at Old Man Anshi. Old Man Anshi walked slowly in the air, a faint smile on his lips. Both of you, this young friend has some fate with me. So, for my sake, can you let him go? Mi Haomiao said darkly, Anshi, you'd better not interfere. This kid has killed too many people from both of our clans. If our two great clans were to swallow this insult, then where would our prestige be? Old Man Anshi took another step forward, not far from Zhuowen. He continued, both of you, you'd better leave now, because I've already informed the King of Hell. I remember that the King of Hell once issued a notice that you are not allowed to attack Shuo Xiaoyu in the Divine City. Now, you've openly disobeyed the orders of the Imperial Court. Are you looking down on the Void Yama? Xu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao were both shocked. This Old Man Anshi was truly sinister. He'd secretly reported this to the King of Hell. They'd surrounded Zhuowen without permission, which was against the King of Hell's orders. Their original plan was to act first and report later. As long as they killed Zhuowen as soon as possible, the King of Hell wouldn't make things difficult for their clans for a dead person. Now that Zhuowen hadn't died and had attracted the attention of Old Man Anshi and the King of Hell, they were truly in the wrong. While they were hesitating, a blazing golden light came from the center of Shuyang Divine City. A divine warship flew over, and a middle-aged man stood on the deck, his entire body glowing with golden light. Behind the middle-aged man, there was an army of elite cultivators, all of them charging over with an aggressive aura. The King of Hell, Gold Prodigy Lord, Xu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao looked over, their faces darkening. Chapter 44-55. The Gold Lord's eyes shone with a golden light, as if they were two suns swallowing and spitting out dazzling light. He clasped his hands behind his back and stood on the deck of the divine warship, looking coldly at Mi Haomiao and Xu Jiaying. Whoosh! The divine warship was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was in the air not far from Zhuowen. Shuo Xiaoyu, we meet again. The Gold Lord's eyes first landed on Zhuowen, and he smiled as he spoke softly. Zhuowen cupped his hands at the Gold Lord and heaved a sigh of relief. From where the Gold Lord was standing, it was obvious that the Gold Lord was on his side. The Gold Lord then looked at Elder Anshi, who was on his left. Fear flashed in his eyes, and he nodded at him as a form of greeting. Elder Anshi smiled and said, "Gold Lord, the King of Hell has announced that no forces in Shuyang City are allowed to lay a hand on Zhuo Xiaoyu. But now, little friend Zhuo is about to be murdered by a scoundrel, yet you're late. They say that the King of Hell is a man of his word, but now it seems that he doesn't live up to his reputation." The Gold Lord's eyes turned cold. The King of Hell has indeed not handled this matter well. But now that we know, we will naturally stand up for Zhuo Xiaoyu. We will not let any harm come to him. With that, the Gold Lord's gaze finally landed on Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying. His eyes shone with a sharp, cold light. "Family heads, don't you think that you've gone too far? The King of Hell has clearly prohibited this, but you've knowingly broken the law. Are you looking down on us, the King of Hell?" The Gold Lord's eyes were like the sun, and his entire body emitted a dazzling divine light. He was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. He spoke slowly as if he was spitting out a supreme incantation. It was loud and clear like a bell, enlightening even the deaf. Zhuowen's expression turned serious. The Gold Lord was indeed one of the 3 lords of the King of Hell. Just the aura emanating from his body was comparable to that of early-stage lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts like Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying. Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying looked gloomy. They exchanged glances and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. They had planned this for a long time and thought that the plan would be carried out smoothly. But they didn't expect that it would be ruined midway. "Gold Lord, you're wrong. This brat has killed so many people from our 2 great clans. His debt of blood is endless. If we swallow this insult, won't people think that we're easy to bully? From our point of view, we didn't do anything wrong, and the King of Hell doesn't need to protect him. He's not qualified at all." Mi Haomiao furrowed his brows and spoke in an unconvinced tone. The Gold Lord raised his eyebrows but did not answer. Instead, he waved his right sleeve in the air. A crack appeared in the air in front of him, and in the depths of the crack, a blazing golden light surged. The source of the golden light was a huge scroll that was about 10 feet long. On the surface of the scroll, there were auspicious beasts emitting a noble golden light. "King of Hell's decree." Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying's eyes narrowed as they looked at the huge scroll in disbelief. King of Hell's decree only appeared once in 1,000 years. Once it appeared, it meant that something big was about to happen. Now that the Gold Lord had taken out King of Hell's decree, the 2 of them had a bad feeling. The golden scroll floated in the air and slowly opened. On the surface of the scroll, huge golden words appeared. Each word was like an incantation. Zhuowen looked at the scroll, and a thunderous boom sounded in his mind. The words on the decree drilled into his soul and imprinted in the depths of his heart. Under King of Hell's decree, Zhuowen killed the 2 aristocratic families purely in self-defense. He is not guilty. Mi Haomiao, Xu Jieying, if the 2 of you continue to pursue Zhuowen, the King of Hell will represent King of Hell's will to intervene and show no mercy. The Gold Lord stood under the decree, his golden gaze still fixed on Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying. "The 2 of you, King of Hell has instructed me to come here to resolve the misunderstanding from before. I hope that the 2 of you can give face to the King of Hell and not do anything too outrageous," the Gold Lord said calmly. Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying's eyes narrowed, and their hearts sank to the bottom. King of Hell was actually stepping in for a lowly cosmic manifestation? The 2 of them could not understand. King of Hell's decree, of course we would not dare to go against it, Xu Jieying said calmly. Although Mi Haomiao was extremely unwilling, he knew that he could only lower his head for now. "Right, to show your sincerity, the 2 of you still have to swear a heavenly oath. This is King's request." The Gold Lord put away the decree and stared at the 2 patriarchs with bright eyes. Mi Haomiao and Xu Jieying frowned. After a moment of hesitation, they could not harden their hearts and refuse. The King of Hell was too powerful. They could not offend the King of Hell for a mere Zhuowen. However, what they did not understand was, what ability did Zhuowen have to be able to receive such preferential treatment from the virtual King of Hell? "Gold Lord, don't worry. In the future, Mi Hao Miao, and I will not personally attack Zhuowen unless he harms the interests of our two aristocratic families. I think you should be satisfied, Xu Jiering said calmly, her tone filled with hostility and coldness. After he finished speaking, he led the cultivator army that followed him and left with a flick of his sleeves. Even though Mi Hao Miao was unwilling, he knew that the outcome was set. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and left with his army. After the two patriarchs left, Zhuowen cupped his hands at the Gold Lord and said, "Lord Gold Lord, thank you for your help." The Gold Glorious Lord smiled and said, "Little friend Zhuo, you flatter me. I'm here on my king's orders. In the future, you don't have to worry about Mi Hao Miao and Xu Jiering shamelessly attacking you. I have done my job, so I will take my leave now." The Gold Lord came and left in a hurry. He did not stay for long. However, when Gold Lord left, he glanced at Elder Anshi from time to time, his eyes filled with vigilance. After the Gold Lord left, Elder Anshi came to Zhuowen with a smile and looked him up and down. "Should I call you Zhuowen or Zhuowen?" Elder Anshi said with a smile. "Zhuowen is my alias. My real name is Zhuowen. Senior, you can call me Zhuowen. Many thanks to Senior for saving me just now. This Zhuo will definitely remember this favor." Zhuowen bowed again. Old man Anshi supported Zhuowen and said with a smile, "Even if I don't do anything, you'll be fine. Your disguise was perfect, but this old man could see with a single glance that you did not feel any despair when facing Xu Jiering and Mi Hao Miao. This means that you must have some kind of trump card that allows you to be unafraid of lawful embodiment of heaven and earth." Zhuowen's eyes narrowed when he heard this, but he quickly calmed down. Elder Anshi was indeed not simple. His observation skills were so sharp that he could deduce so much from this point alone. Chapter 44-56. Little bastard, give up and let me capture you. Otherwise, you will die. Mi Hao Miao gloomily looked down at Zhuowen. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. Zhuowen remained calm. He could feel Moyan Wushang's body trembling. He turned his head and smiled at her. "Wushang, don't worry. Don't worry, with me around, nothing will happen to you. No one will be able to hurt you." Moyan Wushang looked at Zhuowen silently. Suddenly, she smiled and nodded her head. He was still the same person as before. No matter what kind of difficulties you faced, he would always be able to help you. She naturally chose to believe in him. "Little bastard, how dare you ignore me? You are courting death." Mi Hao Miao's eyes were as cold as a knife. His right hand formed a palm and slammed down from the sky. Boom. A vast and unparalleled aura enveloped an area of several hundred miles like countless streams of water vapor. In an instant, the area within hundreds of miles was completely sealed off by this terrifying aura, forming a sealed space. Moyan Wushang's body trembled. She suddenly felt that her body was bound by a strange power. She stood rooted to the ground, unable to move at all. It was too strong. It was much stronger than the ancient starlight. Was this the power of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth? Moyan Wushang was filled with despair. However, Zhuowen was still calm. The moment the terrifying power of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth spread over, he flipped his right hand. A sparkling and translucent crystal ball appeared in his palm. Upon closer inspection, the shape of the crystal ball looked like an eyeball. The pupil and the white of the eyeball were separated. It was very lifelike, as though it was a living eyeball. Eye of the Void. Mi Hao Miao naturally saw the eyeball-like crystal ball in Zhuowen's palm. His face instantly turned gloomy. Ka. The moment the Eye of the Void was activated, the space around Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang shattered. An unknown force wrapped around them and dragged them into the depths of the shattered space. Xu Jiering, stop them. Mi Hao Miao suddenly clenched his right fist, and the space within a few hundred miles of him started to crack. However, he knew that Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang had used the Eyes of the Void to escape. Therefore, he immediately shouted at Xu Jiering, who was beside him. Xu Jiering's eyes flashed. The moment Mi Hao Miao reminded him, he tapped the air with his right hand. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, the The void in front of Shu Jiaying cracked open with a huge gully. The ravine in the void grew longer and longer as it spread faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it streaked across the horizon of the northwestern region of Void Inferno Divine City. In the void more than 10 miles away from the profound sacred pavilion, a gully split open as some kind of mysterious force exploded, and 2 figures were forced out. Poochie. Zhuowen groaned as blood flowed from his mouth and nose. His body was surrounded by layers of spiritual sword intent, and within it, the Grand Imperial Seal glowed with a dazzling golden light. The moment Shu Jiaying made his move, he immediately felt a sense of danger. Therefore, he took out the Grand Imperial Seal and spiritual sword intent. The spiritual sword intent surrounding Zhuowen suddenly exploded, unable to withstand the power of Shu Jiaying's finger. The difference is too great. This lad is no match for the 2 great family heads. The 3 profound sacred elders looked at the terrifying gullies in the sky, and their respect for the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth grew. Give up. Shu Jiaying's face was cold. He waved his right hand lightly, and the surrounding laws of heaven and earth obeyed his command. They turned into spears of laws that pierced through the air toward Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang. Zhuowen took a deep breath. This move was too powerful, and he couldn't take it. However, he didn't panic because he now had a simplified version of the Chariot of Chariot. Zhuowen was confident that Shu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao would not be able to catch up to him with the mystical chariot. When Zhuowen was about to bring out the Chariot of Chariots, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the void to his left. There stood a figure with his hands behind his back. Bang bang bang! An invisible barrier appeared in front of Zhuowen, blocking the law spears one after another. Shu Jiaying's eyes narrowed. He and Mi Haomiao looked at the space to the left of Zhuowen at the same time. Naturally, they also saw the figure standing there. This was a white-haired old man in a long robe. He stood in the air, and his eyes were powerful and sharp as if they contained lightning. Elder Anshi. The moment he saw the old man, Zhuowen's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. He naturally knew this old man. He was Old Man Anshi, who was in charge of the Void Yama Divine ranking. Back then, when he challenged the Void Yama Divine list, it was this old man who arranged it for him. At that time, he felt that this old man was not ordinary, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Shu Jiaying was an early-stage lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert. Since Old Man Anshi could easily block his attack, he must be at least an early-stage lawful embodiment of heaven and earth cultivator. Shu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao were both confused and fearful. Anshi, what do you mean by this? Shu Jiaying asked, his voice as cold as a venomous snake. He stared coldly at Old Man Anshi. Old Man Anshi walked slowly in the air, a faint smile on his lips. Both of you, this young friend has some fate with me. So, for my sake, can you let him go? Mi Haomiao said darkly, Anshi, you'd better not interfere. This kid has killed too many people from both of our clans. If our 2 great clans were to swallow this insult, then where would our prestige be? Old Man Anshi took another step forward, not far from Zhuowen. He continued, both of you, you'd better leave now, because I've already informed the King of Hell. I remember that the King of Hell sent out a notice that you're not allowed to attack Shuo Xiaoyu without permission in the Divine City. Now, you've openly disobeyed the orders of the Imperial Court. Are you looking down on the Void Yama? Shu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao were both shocked. This Old Man Anshi was truly sinister. He'd secretly reported this to the King of Hell. They'd surrounded Zhuowen without permission, which was against the King of Hell's orders. Their original plan was to act first and report later. As long as they killed Zhuowen as soon as possible, the King of Hell wouldn't make things difficult for them for a dead person. Now that Zhuowen hadn't died and had attracted the attention of Old Man Anshi and the King of Hell, they were truly in the wrong. While they were hesitating, a blazing golden light came from the center of Shuyang Divine City. A divine warship flew over, and a middle-aged man stood on the deck, his entire body glowing with golden light. Behind the middle-aged man, there was an army of elite cultivators, all of them charging over with an aggressive aura. The King of Hell, Gold Glorious Lord, Shu Jiaying and Mi Haomiao looked over, their faces darkening. Bird Book Network. Chapter 4457. Crack. Zhuowen exerted force with his right hand, and the jade slip in his palm was crushed into powder. He looked up at Elder Anshi and said, "Elder, this thing is very important. Are you sure you want me to take it? Aren't you afraid that I'll be greedy and fight for it?" Elder Anshi smiled and said, "Actually, I'm quite sure about you. But just in case, I'll leave a special mark on you. If you really do something inappropriate, the mark will alert me and pinpoint your location." Zhuowen nodded. Elder Anshi's action was reasonable. The old man put his right index finger and middle finger together and placed them on Zhuowen's right arm. A scorching sensation came from Zhuowen's right arm. A fiery red mark appeared on his right arm. The shape of the mark was like a pattern of 7 tadpoles, which formed an oval ring. This mark is not only a mark to monitor and track you, but also a mark to show that you are my man. As long as you reach the designated location and show the mark, someone will give it to you. Elder Anshi withdrew his right hand and said solemnly, "Take this Eye of the Void. If you really encounter a dangerous situation, you can also use the Eye of the Void to escape." Elder Anshi seemed to be worried. He took out another eyeball-like hollow eye and handed it to Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't refuse. Instead, he generously put it away. Although he had the chariot now, which was more powerful than the hollow eye, he couldn't escape. He couldn't use the hollow eye, but the people around him could. This is the specific route map. I've marked the shortcuts and some hidden places. Before you go, you'd better familiarize yourself with the route map. Old man Anshi took out a scroll with a route drawn on it and handed it to Zhuowen, instructing him with a serious face. After that, Elder Anshi and Zhuowen discussed some details about the mission. Then Zhuowen left with Moyan Wushang. As soon as Zhuowen returned to the Shuesheng family, Li Yinglong hurried over. "Young Master Zhuo, are you all right? Mi Haomiao and Shu Jiering, these 2 bastards are truly sinister. They actually dare to bully the weak. Truly repulsive," Li Yinglong said angrily. Zhuowen felt a slight warmth in his heart and said, "Family head Li, rest assured, I'm fine." In the end, Gold Glorious Lord came and stopped Shu Jiering and Mi Haomiao. Li Yinglong was startled. Gold Lord? Could it be that he was ordered to come by the virtual King of Hell? Li Yinglong knew very well that the King of Hell had always obeyed orders and would not act on their own accord. Gold Lord would not help Zhuowen on his own accord. Yes, the Gold Lord came with the decree of the virtual King of Hell. Zhuowen explained the situation in a few words. Of course, Zhuowen didn't mention a word about the task that old man Anshi had entrusted to him. "I didn't expect that the virtual King of Hell would personally send down a decree. Young Master Zhuo is truly blessed to be able to obtain the help of such a noble person." Li Yinglong smiled and continued to say to Zhuowen, "Young Master Zhuo, this old man Anshi's identity is not ordinary. You should establish a good relationship with him. This will be of great benefit to you." Zhuowen nodded and did not linger on this topic. "This is..." Li Yinglong's gaze fell on Moyan Wushang, who was beside Zhuowen, and asked in surprise. "She is my close female friend. When I first came to Shuyang City, I was mainly looking for her whereabout," Zhuowen said with a smile. "Greetings, family head Li." Moyan Wushang gracefully bowed to Li Yinglong, elegant and appropriate. Li Yinglong nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "Young Master Zhuo is truly blessed." After the greetings, Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang returned to the Tianluan pavilion. "Wushang, this Eye of the Void is for you." In the courtyard, Zhuowen passed the Eye of the Void to Moyan Wushang. "No. Zhuowen, this Eye of the Void is too precious. It is enough to save my life. I cannot accept it." Moyan Wushang shook her head. She knew that Zhuowen would be in great danger if he went to the Zelene realm. How could she accept this life-saving item? Zhuowen shook his head and said with a smile, "I have better life-saving means. The Eye of the Void is unnecessary for me. Take it. I said that I will not let you get hurt again." Moyan Wushang looked at Zhuowen and saw that his eyes were full of determination. She nodded silently and kept the Eye of the Void. Seeing that Moyan Wushang had accepted the Eye of the Void, Zhuoan smiled with relief. He then waved his sleeve and summoned Shapotian, Xiao He, and Shan Lingyun. Disciple, why did you suddenly summon us? Shan Lingyun put her hands on her hips and glanced at Zhuoan with some dissatisfaction. She then noticed Moyan Wushang in the room. Hey, you are. Shan Lingyun moved in front of Moyan Wushang and looked at him carefully with her big eyes. Ah, Sister Wushang, long time no see. Zhuowen, this brat, finally found you. Xiao He took the lead and jumped onto Wushang's shoulder. She patted the latter's shoulder like an old man. Xiao He. Moyan Wushang's eyes curved into crescents. He held Xiao He with both hands and looked at her carefully. He smiled and said, "It has indeed been a long time. It's good to see you." Xiao He's body stiffened and her eyes became wet. She quickly turned around and wiped her eyes. "Yes, it has indeed been a long time. You have suffered all these years." Xiao He said softly. "You are Moyan Wushang. My disciple often talks about you. His main purpose in entering the 100 domains was to find you." Shan Lingyun moved forward and stretched out her small hand. She said, "I am Shan Lingyun, Zhuowen's teacher in the art of spiritual speech." Moyan Wushang also stretched out his white hand and shook Shan Lingyun's hand. He said, "Nice to meet you. And me, I am Shapotian. My father is Zhuowen. He is also my master. Sister Wushang, you are really beautiful." Shapotian ran over and blinked his innocent eyes. He looked at Moyan Wushang without blinking. Zhuowen walked forward and knocked on Shapotian's head. Then, he looked at Moyan Wushang and said, "Shapotian is the first living creature born in my big world. He was born from heaven and earth." Moyan Wushang smiled and said, "You don't have to explain to me. Xiao He told me about Shapotian." Zhuowen scratched his head and felt a little embarrassed. After a series of self-introductions, Moyan Wushang became familiar with Shan Lingyun and the others. "XDW 8-inch Wushang, do you recognize this item?" Zhuowen flipped his right hand and a 7-colored pagoda floated above his palm. At the top of the pagoda sat a little girl dressed in a rainbow-colored dress. Her little legs were swaying back and forth. Chapter 4458. Hey, your aura. Are you the inheritor of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord? Caini's bright eyes found Moyan Wushang in front of her. Her face was solemn. The 7 treasures pagoda? Moyan Wushang was surprised. She had received half of the inheritance of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord. Naturally, she knew many things about the Saint Lord. The 7 treasures pagoda was the natal divine weapon of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord. It was extremely powerful. However, as she was not qualified to enter the starlight world of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord, this was the first time she had seen the 7 treasures pagoda. "That's right. Although this is your first time seeing me, you can recognize me. It's really commendable." Caini crossed her arms and nodded like an old man. Zhuowen felt Moyan Wushang's puzzled look and said, "I have received the other half of the inheritance and luckily mastered the starlight world of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord." Moyan Wushang was not surprised. She had always thought that Zhuowen was very strong and talented. She had never doubted this. "Wushang, the 7 treasures pagoda is yours from now on. Only you are qualified to inherit the 7 emotions and 6 desires, Saint Lord's inheritance." Zhuowen handed the 7 treasures pagoda to Moyan Wushang. Moyan Wushang was stunned for a moment. She did not expect that Zhuowen would hand over a treasure like the 7 treasures pagoda to her. "You must accept it. I have received another inheritance. This inheritance is not suitable for me. Only you are qualified to inherit it," Zhuowen said seriously. Although I feel that it's too sudden, he has absolute control over the 7 treasures pagoda. Since he gave it to you, you will be my master from now on. Don't worry, I will assist you well." Caini's face showed some helplessness as she tried to persuade Moyan Wushang. Moyan Wushang was not a pretentious person. She could see that Zhuowen really wanted to give it to her. Next, Zhuowen and Colored Mud removed their master-servant relationship, and colored mud completely followed Moyan Wushang. Zhuoan also explained the situation of the 7 emotions 6 desires Saint Lord Starlight World to Moyan of Wushang. The 7 emotions 6 desires Saint Lord Starlight World is extremely rich in resources, and the energy inside is extremely beneficial to your cultivation. Now, your injuries have not healed. You'd better go to the Starlight World to heal first. Zhuoan pondered for a moment and continued, by the way, I have a friend called Duan Jipeng. He is currently cultivating in the Starlight World. After you go in, please send my regards. Moyan Wushang smiled. She stepped forward and gently hugged Zhuoan. Zhuoan, thank you for doing so much for me. After my injuries are healed, let's go back. I miss big sister Chen Shui and everyone I know. Moyan Wushang whispered into Zhuoan's ear, gently but firmly. Zhuoan patted Moyan Wushang's shoulder and said, Millimeter, it's a deal. With a flash of 7-colored light, the beauty in front of Zhuoan had already left. Zhuoan's expression became serious again. He sat by the bed and recalled the specific contents of the jade slip that Old Man Anshi had given him today. The item Old Man Anshi had asked him to take was called the Heaven and Earth Furnace. It was a divine artifact at the early 4th heaven of the Eternal Realm. A divine artifact at the level of the Heaven and Earth Furnace was a first-class treasure even in all the supreme realms. It was enough to make most of the forces jealous. However, Old Man Anshi had given him a very long time to complete this task. He had to complete it within 3 years. Therefore, Zhuoan was not in a hurry now. His current goal was to return to the Zixuan realm and lead the reinforcements of the Shuming family to support the Zixuan clan in their crusade against the other 13 higher realms. This was because he had an idea. After the Zixuan clan had unified all the higher realms, he planned to secretly develop his forces. The longer he stayed in the 100 outer realms, the more he felt the importance of having a large force behind him. The strength of a single person was indeed too small. The next day, in the hall of the Shuming family, Zhuoan met Li Yinglong again. Young Master Zhuo, the cultivator army of our Shuming family is ready. Now, they have gathered at the central square. Li Shuo, Li Hong, you two take young Master Zhuo to have a look. Li Yinglong stood up and said to Zhuoan with a smile. When the group of people arrived at the central square, Zhuoan saw a cultivator army with an imposing aura. The number of this army was not large, about 100 people, but each of them had a vast and unparalleled aura. They were not weaker than the cosmic manifestation realm. In particular, the 2 commanders at the head of the team were surrounded by dazzling starlight. They were both inverse ancient starlight realm experts. These 2 are Elder Di and Elder Lu of our Shuming family. They are both inverse ancient starlight realm experts. With their leadership, they can help the Zixuan clan conquer the other 13 higher realms. Li Yinglong pointed to the front of the army. The 2 commanders at the head of the army were introduced to Zhuoan with a smile. Elder Di was a burly man with a beard, while Elder Lu was an old man with a head full of white hair. The 2 of them came forward and bowed to Li Yinglong, then cupped their hands to Zhuoan. Lu and Di greet young Master Zhuo. The 2 of them spoke in unison. Their expressions were full of reverence. They had heard of Zhuoan's deeds. They knew that the young man in front of them, although his cultivation was lower than theirs, was definitely not weaker than theirs. In fact, he was even stronger. You are too polite, commanders. Zhuoan helped the 2 of them up and said to Li Yinglong, Family head Li, you are so considerate to send such an elite army. Li Yinglong waved his hand and said, Young Master Zhuo, you are too kind. This is what we should do. This army is completely under your command. Your orders are my orders. As he spoke, Li Yinglong pointed to the other side of the square. There, a huge divine ship like a giant beast was parked. Young Master Zhuo, the divine ship has been prepared for you. You can take the army and enter the divine ship. Li Yinglong said with a smile. Zhuoan nodded inwardly. Li Yinglong was very methodical and orderly, which was to his liking. The army boarded the deck of the divine ship one after another. Zhuoan was the last to go. Young Master Zhuo, we won't be going. We hope that you will be victorious this time. Li Shuo and Li Hong stood at the front of the divine ship and waved goodbye to Zhuowen. "Thank you for your kind words. Goodbye." Zhuowen cupped his hands to the two of them. Then, he nodded to Li Yinglong, who was not far away, and commanded the soldiers to set off. Whoosh! The divine ship soared into the sky like a giant beast. It leaped into the depths of the void and quickly disappeared into the distance. While Zhuowen was leading a cultivator army to the Purple Jade Realm, the Purple Jade Realm was in a state of chaos. Wars were happening everywhere. On the other hand, the core area of the Violet Jade Realm, the Violet Jade Saint City, was completely surrounded by an army. Chapter 44-59. Zhixian Sacred City, in the Central Hall. Zi Yang sat on the main seat of the hall with a solemn expression. In front of the hall, the four saintesses and the other higher-ups stood silently on both sides, not daring to say a word. "Zi Yuan, how long have we been surrounded?" Zi Yang rubbed her temples and looked at the saintess, Zi Yuan, who was standing at the front. Zi Yuan stepped out and said with a worried expression, "My lady, it's already the 20th day. Moreover, the defensive array of our sacred city is almost at its limit. I'm afraid it won't be able to hold on for much longer. Moreover, the 12 Grand Venerables who surrounded us specially set up a concealment array. We can't send out a request for help at all." Zi Yang was completely silent, but her heart was filled with anxiety. 20 days ago, not long after she returned to Zhixian Sacred City, the 13 high-grade realms sent troops to surround Zhixian Sacred City and wantonly slaughtered people in Zhixian Sacred City without any scruples. Female supremacy Zi Yang was naturally enraged. She planned to go out and expel these invaders. However, as soon as she went out, she was surrounded by several Grand Venerables. Only then did she understand that other than the Grand Venerables of Sharan Sacred City and Black Scale Sacred City, the other 12 Grand Venerables were all here. Although Zi Yang was strong, she couldn't withstand the attacks of the 12 Grand Venerables. In the end, she was injured and returned to Zhixian Sacred City with heavy injuries. "How can they know my movements so accurately?" Zi Yang's expression was dark. Everything was too coincidental. As soon as she returned to Zhixian Sacred City, the 12 Grand Venerables of Newer Clan, Luotian Clan, and the others came together. Unless there was a traitor in Zhixian Clan or someone in Shuyang Divine City leaked her information. "I wonder when Master will come back. I can't hold on much longer." Zi Yang couldn't help but think of Zhuowen. She knew very well that as long as Zhuowen returned, he would be able to bring the cultivator army of the Shuyu family back. With the help of Zhuowen and the cultivator army of the Shuyu family, Zhixian Clan would be able to escape this dangerous situation. However, she couldn't send out a request for help at all, which made them extremely passive. Rumble. Suddenly, an earth-shattering bang resounded throughout the entire Violet Jade Holy City. After that, the main hall was fiercely shaken a few times, and dense cracks appeared in the main hall. "Oh no! Female Supreme, sirs, the Great City Barrier Array has been breached, and the Allied army has invaded the Holy City and begun a massacre." Outside the main hall, a flustered soldier rushed in. His eyes were filled with fear as he shouted. His voice spread throughout the entire main hall. "What? How could the Great City Barrier formation be broken so quickly?" Female Venerable Zi Yang was shocked and stood up abruptly. Her beautiful eyes were full of shock. Logically speaking, Purple Jade Holy City's city-protecting Grand Array should still be able to hold on for a period of time. Why was it broken now? A mysterious expert appeared on the Allied army's side. He took out a formation disc and completely destroyed the defensive formation. The soldier knelt on the ground, trembling as he spoke. Venerable Zi Yang took a deep breath, and her eyes suddenly became sharp. She said in a deep voice, "Everyone, listen to my order. Follow me out to meet the enemy. We must hold on. As long as the reinforcements arrive, we will be able to survive this crisis." In the main hall, the eyes of the four holy maidens and many higher-ups also became firm. This was a battle of life and death. They could not shrink back. Once they did, they would die. After Venerable Zi Yang led everyone out of the main hall, she saw that the entire holy city had become a scene of devastation. In the sky above the holy city, a black mass of cultivator army was like a swarm of locusts passing through, heading towards the core of the holy city. Wherever these cultivator army passed, wantonly destruction was wantonly, and the people were plunged into misery and suffering. In the holy city, many cultivators who lived all year round rose up to resist, but in the end, they all ended up with their bodies and souls destroyed. At this moment, the peaceful holy city had turned into an azure hell. Everywhere was filled with chaos, blood, and the aura of darkness. Venerable Ziyang's eyes turned blood red when she saw this scene. These were her people. In the territory she guarded, her people were trampled so wantonly. The anger in her chest burned like a raging fire. Ziyang, you're finally willing to come out. Suddenly, a deafening roar came from the distance. Ziyang looked up and saw several figures quickly coming from the distance. Each of them had a powerful aura and were surrounded by dazzling starlight. Lin Yu of the Jade Feather clan, Lan Dao of the Blue Qian clan, Mo Yu of the LV Ran clan, Xian Ku of the Xuanbo clan. Ziyang's face was gloomy. There were a total of 4 figures, all of whom were the great sovereigns of the major clans in the higher realms. Especially Lin Yu and Lan Dao, both of whom were extremely close to the late stage of the ancient Starlight realm. Together with Mo Yu and Xian Ku, the 4 of them were enough to put Ziyang into a passive situation. After all, Ziyang had been seriously injured by the great sovereigns before, and her strength had declined. Ziyang sighed softly and said to Ziyuan, the great saintess beside him, our Zishuan clan's destiny has come to an end. You take the rest of the people back to the temple and activate the last 3rd heavens of eternal realm formation. There's still a secret escape path in the main hall. You all should flee quickly. At the very least, we can't let the Zishuan clan be exterminated. Leave behind some of your bloodline and wait for the future to come back. After Ziyang finished speaking, she waved her sleeve and pushed Ziyuan and the others into the temple without waiting for them to refuse. Then, she took out her ancient star constellation and rushed towards Lin Yu and the others. Boom! The 5 of them fought together. 5 ancient star constellations collided in the void, erupting with a terrifying aura. It was as though the entire sky was about to be torn apart. As expected of the leader of the higher realms. Even though she's seriously injured, she still has such terrifying combat strength. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and the others were shocked as they fought. Even though the 4 of them joined forces, they couldn't gain any advantage over Ziyang. They were even at a disadvantage. The 4 of you, we're here to help you. Suddenly, another 4 people flew over from another direction. The one in the lead was the great sovereign of the Luotian clan, Luo Ya. Following behind Luo Ya was the great sovereign of the newer clan, Huang Ju, and the other 2 great sovereigns from the higher realms. Boom! 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 The moment Luo Ya and the other 3 joined in, the situation of the battle changed drastically. Ziyang, who originally had the upper hand, was completely suppressed. She was forced to retreat. As for her ancient star constellation, it was surrounded by 8 other ancient star constellations. It let out a roar of unwillingness and anger. Its huge body that was shining with starlight was torn apart and became transparent. Poochie. Ziyang felt a sweetness in her mouth as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood also flowed out from her eyes, ears, and nose. She looked miserable and malevolent. Ziyang, you're not our match. It's better for you to surrender. That way, you might be able to survive. Luo Ya had her hands behind her back as she looked down at Ziyang, who was bleeding from her 7 orifices and struggling to resist the terrifying attacks of the 8 great sovereigns. Chapter 4460. Ziyang raised her head with difficulty and looked coldly at Luo Ya. Luo Ya, you've gone too far. The higher-ups have long known about your affairs. Even if you exterminate my Zishuan clan now, the higher-ups will not hesitate to kill you. Even if you annihilate my Xian sect, you still won't be able to escape punishment. Luo Ya's lips curled into a mocking smile. Ziyang, you're too naive. The higher-ups only care about benefits and don't care about emotions. As long as your Shen clan is annihilated and the divine fire source falls back into our hands, the higher-ups will naturally be happy to cooperate with us again. They can even reap greater benefits. Why wouldn't they be happy? At this point, Luo Ya's smile grew even wider. She grinned and continued, actually, we've received instructions from a certain lord to annihilate your Shen clan. As long as your Shen clan is annihilated and we successfully obtain the divine fire source, the faction behind that lord will protect our 13 high-tier realms. The final victory will belong to us, not you. Ziyang's heart trembled. As expected, a certain faction in Voidyang City had leaked her information and united the 13 high-tier realms to deal with the Shen clan. However, which faction would dare to risk being punished by the King of Hell to do such a thing? The three great families. Ziyang's pupils shrank. In Voidyang City, only the three great families could act first and report later. The Shulong family, or both. Ziyang's heart sank to the bottom. With the three great families intervening, the truth of her Shen clan's annihilation was very likely to be covered up. Everyone, don't hold back. Use your full strength. Kill Ziyang completely and then slaughter the Shen clan. The divine fire source will become an ownerless item again, Luo Ya said slowly, her voice cold. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, Huang Ju, and the other 7 great family sovereigns looked at each other and nodded. Their target was Ziyang. As long as Ziyang died and the Shen clan was annihilated, the higher-ups would have no choice but to hand the divine fire source to them. Ziyang, rest in peace. Lin Yu's eyes were cold. He held the short halberds with both hands and let out a soft shout. The halberds drew a strange arc in the air, and 2 crescent moon-like magic flew out. Blue Dao held the blue scepter in his hand and chanted a spell. The scepter emitted a blue tide that swept over. Huang Ju had golden claws on both of his hands. They were as sharp as the claws of a golden-winged roc and emitted a dazzling golden light. He reached out gently and the void exploded. A huge golden claw stretched out and grabbed at Ziyang's body. The other 4 also unleashed their best divine abilities. Luo Ya's right sword finger tapped lightly, and thousands of icicles suddenly bloomed behind her. Countless icicles followed her right hand and fell rapidly downwards. Her target was naturally Ziyang. A look of despair appeared in Ziyang's eyes. Luoya and the others had not even used their full strength, yet she was already at a disadvantage. Now that the 8 of them had displayed their abilities, she knew that she no longer had the ability to resist. A divine warship descended at the border of the Zishuan realm. On the deck of the divine warship, Zhuoan stood at the bow. Behind him, Elder Lu and Elder Di stood silently, their expressions solemn. The moment the divine warship arrived at the Zishuan realm, Zhuoan sensed that something was amiss. He discovered that many places in the Zishuan realm were devastated, as if a great battle had just taken place. The deeper they went, the deeper the traces of battle. Many buildings had been reduced to ruins, and corpses were piled up everywhere. It was a tragic and eerie sight. What happened in the Zishuan realm? Elder Lu's eyes were sharp. He noticed that there were several lucky survivors in a valley. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought these lucky survivors to the deck. The survivors trembled and knelt on the deck. They kept kowtowing to Zhuoan and the others and begged for mercy. They were clearly scared out of their wits. Tell us what happened here, and then you can leave safely. Zhuoan looked at the group of survivors, and his gaze fell on the middle-aged man at the front who was slightly calmer. The middle-aged man knelt in front of Zhuoan, swallowed, and said, "The other higher realms have joined forces to attack our Zishuan realm. As soon as the allied forces entered the Zishuan realm, they started a massacre and left nothing behind. They are too ruthless." With the middle-aged man's narration, Zhuoan finally understood the current situation of the Zishuan realm. So ruthless. Are they planning to fight to the death? Zhuoan's face was gloomy. He knew very well that if the Zishuan clan was really wiped out, the sacred fire source could only be handed over to the other higher realms for safekeeping. At that time, even if the King of Hell stood on the Zishuan clan's side, it would be useless. After all, there must be a connection point between the superior realms and the higher realms. If the Zishuan realm was wiped out, They could only choose from the other higher realms. Elder Lu, Elder Di, I will go first. You lead the cultivator army and follow behind. Zhuowen turned to look at the two behind him and said in a deep voice. Although the Shuesheng family's divine ship was very fast, it would still take half a day to reach Zishuan's sacred city. However, Zhuowen could arrive in the blink of an eye if he used the chariot of chariots. Elder Lu and Elder Di were very puzzled when they heard this. Their divine warship was already fast enough. Could Zhuowen have a mount that was even faster than this divine warship? Zhuowen did not wait for the two to answer. He summoned the chariot of chariots, jumped on, and fled into the distance. In the blink of an eye, the chariot of chariots disappeared before Elder Lu and Elder Di's eyes. This speed. Elder Lu and Elder Di rubbed their eyes and looked at Zhuowen, who had disappeared without a trace. They could not believe what they had seen. The next moment, the chariot of chariots appeared in the sky above Zishuan's sacred city. Zhuowen's eyes gradually narrowed as he looked at the desolated sacred city that was filled with endless screams. Ziyang. Zhuowen immediately noticed that not far from the center of the sacred city, Ziyang was surrounded by 8 figures. She was struggling to hold on. The 8 figures all shone with resplendent starlight. They were all experts of the inverse starlight realm. At this moment, the 8 of them used their strongest divine abilities and attacked Ziyang below. Ziyang's eyes were filled with despair. She even closed them. She knew that she had fallen into a real desperate situation. There was no way she could survive. Swoosh! A strong wind suddenly swept over. Ziyang subconsciously opened her eyes and saw a black figure streak past her. Then, a hand grabbed her shoulder. Before Ziyang could react, she felt the world spinning around her. This is the sacred city's city wall? I was clearly near the central hall just now. Ziyang could not believe it. Then, she realized that a young man was holding her shoulder and carrying her to a chariot. Master, you're back. When Ziyang's gaze fell on the young man's face, she was pleasantly surprised. It seemed that her master had saved her life just now. Zhuowen gently put Ziyang down, and his eyes fell on the central hall. There, the strongest divine abilities of Luoya and the others finally fell. Then, the void in that area completely erupted with an extremely terrifying energy vortex, as if it was going to devour everything. Invisible waves of air spread out in layers and swept out toward the periphery. Zhuowen put his hands behind his back and faced the waves of air. His black hair fluttered, and his cold eyes fell on Luoya, Huangju, and the others. Luoya, Huangju, Lin Yu, and the others seemed to feel something. They suddenly raised their heads and looked in the direction of the city wall. There, a young man in black clothes, his clothes and hair fluttering wantonly. Chapter 4461. Zhuowen. He's still alive. Huangju's eyes narrowed as he recognized Zhuowen immediately. Back then, Zhuowen had killed many of the newer clan's powerful fighters in the Golden Crow Mountains. He had even stolen the inheritance of the Saint Lord of 7 emotions and 6 desires. Later, in the Golden Crow Mountains, Zhuowen had been targeted by everyone. Nuer had personally stepped in and forced him to self-destruct. But now, Zhuowen had appeared before him again and his aura was much stronger than when he was in the Golden Crow Mountains. Zhuowen slowly raised his head and his sharp gaze landed on Huangju. His expression was calm. Naturally, he had seen Huangju before. Back when Nuer Ziqiong was killed, Huangju was one of the murderers. He had been there at the time. It seemed that Huangju still did not know that the one who had self-destructed in the Golden Crow Mountains was only his puppet and not his actual body. This was why Huangju was so surprised to see him again. Luoya, Lin Yu, and the others were confused. This was the first time they had heard of Zhuowen's name. Of course, Luoya and the others had seen Zhuowen before. However, at that time, Zhuowen had appeared as a demonic cultivator. His appearance and aura were very different from now. This was why they did not recognize Zhuowen. This kid is not simple. Luoya frowned. She did not even see how this kid had saved Ziyang. In the blink of an eye, Ziyang had appeared at the edge of the city wall. This kid's sacred chariot is extraordinary. Its speed is probably even faster than a divine warship. It's also more agile than a divine warship, Landau said in a low voice. He's just a piece of trash in the early cosmic Dharma stage. Although his mount is extraordinary, he's too weak. It's too easy to kill him. Mo Yu, the great clan leader of the LV Ran clan, had a head full of green hair. His eyes emitted a sharp cold light. He suddenly jumped up and shot towards Zhuo Wen like a bolt of lightning. After I kill this kid, it will be your turn, Ziyang. In the blink of an eye, Mo Yu appeared above the divine chariot. Both of his hands were holding onto the blade, and the inverse ancient star constellation behind him was roaring crazily. He was like a god that had descended to the mortal world, unstoppable. Early reverse ancient starlight stage. Zhuo Wen casually glanced at the approaching Mo Yu. After sensing the latter's aura, he shook his head. Bang! Mo Yu's two divine sabers slashed down fiercely. The terrifying saber light was like two falling moonlight, sharp and dazzling. Zhuo Wen stood on the chariot with his hands behind his back. He only raised his head slightly, and a purple-gold light flickered between his eyebrows. Rumble. 2 rounds of saber light completely fell on the sacred chariot, erupting with an unprecedentedly terrifying light, illuminating the entire Zixuan sacred city in a vast expanse of white. Huang Ju, Luo Ya, and the rest squinted their eyes, wondering if Zhuo Wen was scared silly. The speed of the chariot was so fast, but he did not run away. Instead, he stood there and allowed Mo Yu to attack him. Mo Yu stood in the air with his saber in hand, looking down at Zhuo Wen, who was enveloped by his saber light, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. Kid, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you still want to barge in. You're dead meat, Mo Yu muttered to himself. Just when he was about to keep his divine saber, he suddenly lowered his head. He saw that the saber light below was suddenly torn apart by some kind of power, and a blazing purple-gold light shot up into the sky. It was so dazzling and blazing. After the saber light disappeared, Mo Yu was shocked to find that the divine chariot was still floating in the air without any damage. In the divine chariot, Zhuo Wen still had his hands behind his back, and he did not even move an inch. However, around him, a purple-gold divine sword was like a swimming fish, constantly revolving around him like the most loyal bodyguard. You were so arrogant when you said that I was going to die. I thought that you were very powerful, but I did not expect your attack to be so weak. It's really too weak. Zhuo Wen looked at Mo Yu, who was still in shock, and slowly spoke with a cold and emotionless voice. You must be joking. I can't be wrong. His aura is at most at the early stage of the cosmic phase. How could he block Mo Yu's attack so easily? Lin Yu's eyes widened as he muttered to himself. Not only Lin Yu, but Luo Ya, Huang Ju, and the rest were also shocked. You dare to say that I'm weak? I did not use my full strength just now, but now, I will definitely kill you. Mo Yu was enraged. How could he not be angry when he was called weak by a cultivator whose cultivation was far lower than his? Hence, Mo Yu used his strongest superpower, and his 2 sabers slashed out in a cross. Instantly, endless saber lights shot out, forming the phantom of a huge whale that was tens of thousands of feet long. Such a huge phantom of a whale was formed by pure saber light. Roar. The moment the phantom of a whale was formed, it dived down from the void and fell towards Zhuo Wen's sacred chariot. I said that you're weak, so you're too weak. Zhuo Wen's expression was cold. He gently raised his right hand and pointed out with his finger. All of a sudden, billowing devil chi appeared around him, and his eyes turned scarlet and demonic. In an instant, he entered the demonic state. The spiritual soul sword essence that was floating around his body instantly turned pitch black, and its power and aura suddenly increased, reaching a terrifying level. Swoosh! The pitch-black sword essence followed the direction that Zhuo Wen's finger was pointing at, and burst out. The entire air exploded with an ear-piercing tearing sound. Boom! The pitch-black sword essence pierced through the sky and instantly blasted onto the body of the whale that was formed by pure saber light. With a loud explosion, the huge whale collapsed, and countless saber lights burst out, shattering into countless light spots. A ray of black sword essence pierced through, and without any decrease in speed, it blasted towards Mo Yu. Poochie. Before Mo Yu could even react, his forehead was pierced by the black sword essence, and blood spurted out. How is this possible? That was the last sentence that Mo Yu said before he died. After saying that, his vision turned black, and he fell down, his body and soul destroyed. The spiritual soul sword essence in the demonic state was too powerful, and it instantly annihilated Mo Yu's spiritual soul, causing his body and soul to be destroyed. He couldn't be more dead. It's him. That young demonic cultivator. The moment Luo Ya and Lan Dao saw Zhuowen enter the demonic state, they immediately recognized him. Wasn't he the demonic cultivator who killed He Fa and took away the divine fire source? At that time, Luo Ya relied on He Fa's ring and used the art of communication to find the young demonic cultivator. However, they were still a step too late. Zhuowen had already boarded the last divine ship in Zishen Saint City and was heading towards the Supreme Region. So that's how it is. That young demonic cultivator was also Zhuowen in disguise. This kid is really cunning. Huang Ju was even more shocked, and he couldn't help but curse under his breath. However, right after he finished speaking, the gaze with which he looked at Zhuowen was filled with fear. Just now, the scene of this kid easily killing Mo Yu was still fresh in his mind. This kid's strength was too terrifying. Chapter 4462. What the hell is going on? The moment Mo Yu fell, the other 4 great family sovereigns rushed over from another direction of the holy city. They split up with Luo Ya and the other 4. Luo Ya and the rest besieged Ziyang to take down the center of the holy city while they cleaned up the area outside the center of the holy city to prevent the Zishen clan survivors from escaping. Just now, the commotion caused by the battle between Zhuowen and Mo Yu was too great. Hence, the 4 of them rushed over to check it out. Mo Yu is dead. Who did it? When the 4 of them arrived, they discovered Mo Yu's corpse not far away. All of them were dumbstruck. It was him. Everyone, his name is Zhuowen. Since he could easily kill Mo Yu, I'm afraid he's not weaker than Ziyang at his peak. He might even be stronger. Huang Ju's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He suddenly spoke as his gaze swept across Luo Ya and the rest. His expression became extremely solemn. We should join forces and kill him first. He's a great threat. Luo Ya spoke in a deep voice as her eyes were filled with killing intent. Agreed. Let's kill him first. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and the rest of the 5 agreed without hesitation. As for the 4 who just arrived, they frowned. They felt that Huang Ju and Luo Ya were making a fuss out of nothing. Although the 4 of them didn't agree, they didn't dare to raise any objections. After all, Mo Yu's corpse was still there. Zhuowen wasn't someone to be trifled with. It was better to join forces than to be defeated one by one. Everyone, follow me. Let's attack together. Luo Ya suddenly shouted as she summoned her defying ancient star form. The aura of a late-stage defying ancient star form could be seen at a glance. The moment Luo Ya summoned her defying ancient star form, Huang Ju, Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and the rest of the great family sovereigns also summoned their own defying ancient star form. A total of 11 defying ancient star forms hovered in the sky as if they had filled up the entire sky. How magnificent and intense was that scene? Zhuowen is really fast. Since he's here, it means that the Shu family's army isn't far away. We can't stay here any longer. The moment Luoya and the others summoned their ancient celestial bodies, in a dark and remote corner of Zishen Saint City, a black shadow muttered to himself. In the blink of an eye, the black figure disappeared. You really think too highly of me. The 11 of you are the great clan masters of your respective higher domains, the highest leaders, but now you've joined forces just to deal with a nobody like me. Zhuowen stood on the sacred chariot with his hands behind his back, calmly glancing at the 11 defying ancient starlight experts around him. Ziyang stood beside Zhuowen, her face pale with fright. She didn't doubt Zhuowen's strength, but she didn't believe that Zhuowen would be a match for these 11 people. Master, Didn't you say that the Void family's army is about to arrive? We don't have to fight them head-on. We can meet up with the Void family first. Ziyang lowered her head and suggested softly. It's all right. They can't do anything to me. Zhuowen waved his hand. He bent his finger and pointed at the suspension of the sacred chariot. The sacred chariot flew out of the encirclement as fast as lightning. As for Zhuo Wen, he leaped out and slowly walked through the air towards Luo Ya and the others. So fast. This boy's mount. The pupils of Luoya and the others shrank into needles. The speed of the sacred chariot was too fast. Before they could react, this boy had already escaped the encirclement set up by the 11 of them. In other words, if this boy wanted to leave, the 11 of them couldn't stop him at all. Zhuowen, you have such a magical mount, but you didn't choose to escape. You still dare to fight with us. I really admire your courage. Huang Ju looked at Zhuowen, who was walking through the void, with a cold smile on his face. Luoya and the others also breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Zhuowen would rely on his powerful mount to escape. After all, this boy's potential was too great. Right now, he only had the cosmic aspect, and he already had such strength. If his cultivation was higher in the future, wouldn't it be even more terrifying? Therefore, this boy must die. They had to strangle him in the cradle now. The reason why I didn't escape is because you are not qualified to make me escape. You are not worthy. Zhuowen slowly walked over. His right hand gently grasped the void, and the Taiyu sacred sword appeared in his palm. The demonic aura around him became denser and denser. The billowing black demonic aura spread for thousands of miles. He, on the other hand, was like a demon king from hell who wanted to destroy everything in this world. Humph. Arrogant and conceited. The last 4 people to arrive snorted coldly and took the lead to charge towards Zhuowen. Kill. Luoya shouted and followed closely behind with Lan Dao, Huang Ju, and the others. Boom. 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 Zhuowen was awe-inspiring and fearless. He rushed towards the 11 people in front of him with his own strength. Both sides used all their magical powers and collided with each other, creating extremely terrifying energy ripples. With just this collision, 1/5 of the buildings in Zishen Sacred City had been completely turned into ruins. At the same time, Zhuowen summoned 3 cosmic aspects and fought with the 11 inverse ancient celestial aspects. Bang! In an instant, the first 4 people to rush over were sent flying by Zhuowen's attack. Luoya and the others followed one after another and blasted all kinds of magical powers. Zhuowen used his divine soul sword intent to cut through all of them, and he couldn't help but retreat more than 10 steps. This guy is too strong. He has 3 cosmic aspects, and they weren't destroyed by our inverse ancient celestial aspects in the first place. Luoya, Huang Ju, and the others were shocked when they saw the first 4 people to be sent flying by Zhuowen's attack. The killing intent in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. Die. Luoya, Huang Ju, and the other 6 people didn't give Zhuowen any chance to breathe. They all came and attacked with all their might. Boom. 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 7 magical powers landed on Zhuowen's body and exploded with terrifying energy. Secret technique, formless water escape. Zhuowen's body turned into formless water and blended into the depths of the earth, cleverly dodging the magical powers of Luoya and the others. The formless water quickly moved in the depths of the earth and condensed again, appearing behind the 4 people who were repelled by him. The cultivation of these 4 people was the weakest. They were only at the early inverse ancient starlight realm, which was almost the same as Mo Yu. Naturally, Zhuowen would start with the weaker ones. Heaven and earth primordial one-line heaven. Sword shaking the 9 heavens. Life in the morning, death in the evening. The moment Zhuowen condensed, he unleashed all 3 of his self-created magical powers. The power of the 3 magical powers in the demonic state was too terrifying. Before the 4 of them could even react, they were completely enveloped by it. Mournful screams could be heard continuously. Not good. Luoya and the others turned around and saw the 4 people being drowned by Zhuowen's 3 magical powers. After the continuous screams, they saw 4 corpses falling on the ground. The 4 corpses were almost torn into pieces. None of them were intact. Bastard, this guy. Is this guy really at the cosmic manifestation realm? Xian Ku of the Xuanbo clan's eyes were filled with fear as he said in a trembling voice. These 4 idiots underestimated the enemy too much. Everyone, we have to work together. We can't give this kid the chance to defeat us one by one, Luoya cursed in a low voice. Huang Ju's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, mournful screams could be heard from the void. Following the fall of the 4 people, 4 inverse ancient star forms were destroyed. The 3 avatars of Zhuo Wen, who were originally at a disadvantage and passive, were now in a much more relaxed situation. However, under the siege of the 7 inverse ancient star forms, his 3 cosmic manifestations were still struggling. They probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Zhuowen knew that he had to end the battle quickly. Now, it's your turn. Zhuowen waved the extreme nether sacred sword as his eyes fell on Luoya and the others. Chapter 4463. Kill. Luo Ya leaped up. Her body was emitting blue frost as she rapidly rushed towards Zhuowen. The killing intent in her eyes was so dense that it seemed to have materialized. In the depths of her killing intent, there was extreme fear. This brat was too strong. If she didn't eliminate him now, she and the Luotian clan would be uprooted by him in the future. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and the rest also thought of this point. Their killing intent wasn't any weaker than Luo Ya's. They followed closely behind Luo Ya. Huang Ju's eyes flickered as he followed at the back. His brows were tightly furrowed and no one knew what he was thinking. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Zhuowen's eyes flickered with red light. Soul-type sword intents shot out from his glabella and engulfed him like a storm. Kill. Zhuowen also rushed out. Hundreds and thousands of sword intents revolved around him, forming a terrifying storm of sword intents. Both sides collided fiercely. Sword intents swept out, tearing the sky apart. Divine abilities were like dazzling fireworks that constantly exploded. In the storm of sword intents, Zhuowen was like a bolt of lightning. He held the Taiyu Saint sword and engaged in an intense battle with the 7 people. Sparks flew and the clanging sounds of divine weapons colliding rang out incessantly. Suddenly, 3 figures flew out in an extremely sorry state. These 3 people were the weakest among the 7. They were only at the early Nigu Starlight realm. If it wasn't for a portion of Zhuowen's attacks being blocked by Luo Ya and the rest, the 3 of them might have been killed by Zhuowen in the collision just now. So strong. No wonder he could kill Mo Yu and the rest so easily. Xian Ku of the Xuanbo clan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the young man who was in an intense battle with Luo Ya and the rest. Xian Ku's strength could only be considered as one of the weakest among these people. He wasn't much weaker than Mo Yu. Naturally, he wasn't a match for Zhuowen. At this moment, although the 3 of them were still in the periphery of the storm of sword intents, it was still difficult for them to resist the incoming divine soul sword intents. Their injuries were getting more and more serious. Demonic Eye. Within the storm of sword intent, Zhuowen swung his sword, forcing back Lan Dao and Lin Yu who had come together. At the same time, a scorching, scarlet light shone from the depths of his eyes. Boom! Boom! The moment Zhuowen opened his demonic eye, huge demonic god statues fell from the sky. With the support of Mo Ran, each demon god statue was tens of thousands of feet tall. They attacked Luo Ya and the others with unparalleled momentum. Luo Ya's expression changed slightly. Her jade-like hands turned into translucent ice sculptures, and she suddenly swung them out. The demon god statues that had surrounded them were all frozen into ice, and they gave off a chilling aura. However, there were too many fiend celestial statues. They came one after another, causing Luo Ya to be in a passive situation. Not far away, Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju were the same. Their situation was even more difficult than Luo Ya's. Among this group of people, Luo Ya was the strongest. Her cultivation had reached the late stage of inverse ancient starlight, while Huang Ju and the other two were only at the middle stage of inverse ancient starlight. They were barely able to resist the spiritual sword intent. With the addition of these countless fiend celestial statues, it was naturally very difficult for them. The most unlucky ones should be Xian Ku and the other two. They were the first to be repelled and were also the weakest. At this moment, they were entangled by the fiend celestial statues. The situation was not optimistic at all. Demonic flame. The moment Zhuowen summoned the fiend celestial statues, he did not stop. His eyes burst out with scorching scarlet flames. The demonic flame followed the storm of sword qi and suddenly shot out, enveloping the entire range of the storm of sword qi. Luo Ya, Lan Dao, and the others were naturally infected by the demonic flame. What kind of flame is this? It's so terrifying. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju worked together to resist the demonic god statue. Among them, Lin Yu was accidentally burned by the demonic god flame. His right hand was immediately set ablaze. Like a prairie fire, it instantly burned his hand into ashes. Moreover, the demonic flame was extremely fast. It began to follow his right arm and swept towards his body. Lin Yu's reaction was extremely fast. He directly cut off his right arm at the shoulder. He looked at his burned arm in horror and fell to the ground. Lan Dao and Huang Ju naturally saw it too. They were all fearful. They took out their defensive artifacts and placed them around them to resist the demonic flame's corrosion. However, what made them fearful was that the demonic flame was too powerful. It kept burning the divine light on the surface of the defensive artifacts. At this rate, the defensive artifacts would eventually be burned through by the demonic flame. Luo Ya condensed layer after layer of ice walls around her and blocked the demonic flame. She was much better off than Lin Yu and the other two. However, Luo Ya was also very fearful of the demonic flame. She was surrounded by the terrifying demonic flame. She did not dare to casually go out for a while. Suddenly, outside the storm of sword qi, 3 shrill screams sounded at the same time. Xian Ku and the other two, who were originally struggling to resist the fiend celestial statues, had nowhere to hide when the demonic flame swept over them. They were completely engulfed by the demonic flame. They struggled with all their might in the scarlet flames. However, it was just a struggle. In less than 10 breaths, they were completely burned to ashes. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. Damn it! How does this guy have so many powerful and strange moves? Lan Dao looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away. His eyes were filled with fear. Huang Ju's eyes flashed. He quietly took out an eye of the void and hung it on his waist. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a terrifying sound of wind being torn apart swept over. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju could not help but raise their heads. They saw that Zhuowen had appeared above them. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He held the Taiyu sacred sword in his right hand and slashed down. Clang! 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 Zhuowen slashed down again and again. The sword light was like lightning and the sword qi was like a rainbow. It was as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Originally, under the attack of the demonic flames, the defense of the 3 of them was already somewhat strenuous. However, as Zhuowen waved his sword, they finally could not hold on any longer and completely collapsed. Rip! Endless scarlet flames poured down like a flood, drowning Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju. The 3 of them struggled to defend against the demonic flame. Their bodies were full of openings. Zhuowen took a step forward and arrived in front of Lin Yu in an instant. The Taiyu sacred sword in his hand suddenly stabbed out, aiming at Lin Yu's forehead. Lin Yu's pupils shrank. A strong sense of danger rose in his heart. Without thinking, he placed the divine spear in his left hand in front of him and blocked Zhuowen's sword. Clang! The sword and the spear collided, and the sound of metal clashing rang out. Lin Yu groaned and could not help but retreat. At the same time, he exposed a huge opening. With a thought, Zhuowen sent the demonic flame into Lin Yu's body through the opening. Lin Yu's left hand and even his body were completely covered by the demonic flame. Lin Yu screamed. His eyes were filled with determination. He immediately chopped off his head. As soon as his head fell off, he He fled into the distance like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 4464. Kill. Luo Yue leaped up. Her body was emitting blue frost as she rapidly rushed towards Zhuowen. The killing intent in her eyes was so dense that it seemed to have materialized. In the depths of her killing intent, there was extreme fear. This brat was too strong. If she didn't eliminate him now, she and the Luotian clan would be uprooted by him in the future. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and the rest also thought of this point. Their killing intent wasn't any weaker than Luo Yue's. They followed closely behind Luo Yue. Huang Ju's eyes flickered as he followed at the back. His brows were tightly furrowed and no one knew what he was thinking. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Zhuowen's eyes flickered with red light. Soul-type sword intense shot out from his glabella and engulfed him like a storm. Kill. Zhuowen also rushed out. Hundreds and thousands of sword intense revolved around him, forming a terrifying storm of sword intense. Both sides collided fiercely. Sword intense swept out, tearing the sky apart. Divine abilities were like dazzling fireworks that constantly exploded. In the storm of sword intense, Zhuowen was like a bolt of lightning. He held the Taiyu Saint sword and engaged in an intense battle with the 7 people. Sparks flew and the clanging sounds of divine weapons colliding rang out incessantly. Suddenly, 3 figures flew out in an extremely sorry state. These 3 people were the weakest among the 7. They were only at the early Nigu Starlight realm. If it wasn't for a portion of Zhuowen's attacks being blocked by Luo Yue and the rest, the 3 of them might have been killed by Zhuowen in the collision just now. So strong. No wonder he could kill Mo Yu and the rest so easily. Xian Ku of the Xuanbo clan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the young man who was in an intense battle with Luo Yue and the rest. Xian Ku's strength could only be considered as one of the weakest among these people. He wasn't much weaker than Mo Yu. Naturally, he wasn't a match for Zhuowen. At this moment, although the 3 of them were still in the periphery of the storm of sword intense, it was still difficult for them to resist the incoming divine soul sword intense. Their injuries were getting more and more serious. Demonic Eye. Within the storm of sword intent, Zhuowen swung his sword, forcing back Lan Dao and Lin Yu who had come together. At the same time, a scorching, scarlet light shone from the depths of his eyes. Boom! Boom! The moment Zhuowen opened his demonic eye, huge demonic god statues fell from the sky. With the support of Mo Ran, each demon god statue was tens of thousands of feet tall. They attacked Luo Yue and the others with unparalleled momentum. Luo Yue's expression changed slightly. Her jade-like hands turned into translucent ice sculptures, and she suddenly swung them out. The demon god statues that had surrounded them were all frozen into ice, and they gave off a chilling aura. However, there were too many fiend celestial statues. They came one after another, causing Luo Yue to be in a passive situation. Not far away, Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju were the same. Their situation was even more difficult than Luo Yue's. Among this group of people, Luo Yue was the strongest. Her cultivation had reached the late ancient starlight realm, while Huang Ju and the other 2 were only at the middle ancient starlight realm. They were barely able to resist the spiritual sword intent. Adding the countless fiend celestial statues, it was naturally very strenuous for them. The most unlucky ones should be Xian Ku and the other 2. They were the first to be repelled, and their strength was also the weakest. At this moment, they were entangled by the fiend celestial statues. The situation was not optimistic at all. Demonic flame. The moment Zhuowen summoned the fiend celestial statues, he did not stop. Blazing scarlet flames burst out from his eyes. The demonic flame followed the storm of sword chi and suddenly shot out, enveloping the entire range of the storm of sword chi. Luo Yue, Lan Dao, and the others were naturally infected by the demonic flame. What kind of flame is this? It's so terrifying. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju joined forces to resist the fiend celestial statues. Lin Yu was accidentally burned by the demonic flame. His right hand was immediately ignited. Like a prairie fire, it was instantly burned to ashes. Moreover, the demonic flame was extremely fast. It began to follow his right arm and swept towards his body. Lin Yu's reaction was extremely fast. He directly cut off his right arm at the shoulder. His eyes were filled with horror as he looked at his burned arm that fell to the ground. Lan Dao and Huang Ju naturally saw it too. They were all fearful. They took out their defensive artifacts and placed them around them to resist the demonic flame's corrosion. However, what made them fearful was that the demonic flame was too powerful. It kept burning the divine light on the surface of the defensive artifacts. At this rate, the defensive artifacts would probably be burned through by the demonic flame in the end. Luo Yue condensed layer after layer of ice walls around her and blocked the demonic flame. She was much better off than Lin Yu and the other two. However, Luo Yue was also very fearful of the demonic flame. Her surroundings were covered with terrifying demonic flame. She did not dare to casually go out for a while. Ah! Ah! Suddenly, 3 shrill screams rang out from the periphery of the storm of sword chi. Xian Ku and the other two, who were originally struggling to resist the fiend celestial statues, had nowhere to hide when the demonic flame swept over them. They were completely engulfed by the demonic flame. They struggled with all their might in the scarlet flames. However, it was just a struggle. In less than 10 breaths, they were completely burned to ashes. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. Damn it! How does this guy have so many powerful and strange moves? Lan Dao looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away. His eyes were filled with fear. Huang Ju's eyes flashed. He quietly took out an eye of the void and hung it on his waist. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a terrifying sound of wind being torn apart swept over. Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju could not help but raise their heads. They saw that Zhuowen had appeared above them. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He held the Taiyu sacred sword in his right hand and slashed down. Clang! 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 Zhuowen slashed down again and again. The sword light was like lightning and the sword chi was like a rainbow. It was as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Originally, under the attack of the demonic flames, the defense of the 3 of them was already somewhat strenuous. However, as Zhuowen waved his sword, they finally could not hold on any longer and completely collapsed. Rip! Endless scarlet flames poured down like a flood, drowning Lin Yu, Lan Dao, and Huang Ju. The 3 of them struggled to resist the demonic flame. Their bodies were full of openings. Zhuowen took a step forward and arrived in front of Lin Yu in an instant. He suddenly stabbed the Taiyu sacred sword in his hand, aiming at Lin Yu's forehead. Lin Yu's pupils shrank. A strong sense of danger rose in his heart. He did not even think about it. He held the divine spear in his left hand in front of him and blocked Zhuowen's sword. Clang! The sword and the spear collided, and the sound of metal clashing rang out. Lin Yu groaned and could not help but retreat. At the same time, he exposed a huge opening. Zhuowen's mind moved. The billowing demonic flame rushed in through the opening. Lin Yu's left hand and even his body were completely covered by the demonic flame. Lin Yu screamed. His eyes were filled with determination. He directly chopped off his head. As soon as his head fell off, he fled into the distance like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 4465. Elder Di, Elder Lu. Zhuowen cupped his hands and smiled at the 2 elders on the divine warship. Elder Di and Elder Lu stopped the divine warship in front of Zhuowen and walked down with the cultivator army. Young Master Zhuo, you're too polite. Is there anything else we can do for you now? Elder Di and Elder Lu scratched their heads, feeling a little embarrassed. This time, they had come to assist Zhuowen under Li Yinglong's orders. It was just that, from the looks of it, they all seemed to have become superfluous. Zhuo when alone resolved the Purple Jade Holy City's crisis. At the same time, they were more and more in awe of Zhuowen. Not only was Zhuowen powerful, but he also had endless trump cards. For example, Zhuowen's mysterious divine chariot was many times faster than their divine warship. In their eyes, Zhuowen was a mystery that could never be solved. Zhuoan pondered for a moment and said, "Elders, stay in Zishen Sacred City for a few days. After the clan is reorganized, I'll have to rely on you to conquer other high-level realms." Elder Lu and Elder Di hurriedly waved their hands, saying that they didn't dare. Ziyang and Luo Ya, who were standing behind Zhuowen, were dumbfounded. Elder Lu and Elder Di were the higher-ups of the Xuesheng family, but they were so polite to Zhuowen, which moved them. "This boy is not as simple as he looks. It seems that it's not bad for me to recognize him as my master." Luo Ya's eyes flickered, and her mind began to wander. Next, under Ziyang's arrangement, Elder Di and Elder Lu stayed in Zishen Sacred Palace one after another. The great saintess Ziyuan and the other higher-ups of the clan, who were hiding in Zishen Sacred Palace, all knelt in front of Zhuowen after learning the whole story, thanking Zhuowen profusely. The great saintess Ziyuan's mood was the most complicated. Back then, she thought that her cultivation should not be much weaker than Zhuowen's, and her status should be higher than Zhuowen's. Now, only a short time had passed, and Zhuowen already had such a deep relationship with the Xuesheng family of the Super Realm. Their female supremacy Ziyang and Luo Ya were also respectful to him. Thinking about it now, Ziyuan's heart was full of bitterness. If Zilong was still here, would she regret it when she found out that the people she tried to make things difficult for are no longer the same as before? Ziyuan was in a daze. She couldn't help but think of the third holy maiden, Zilong. 3 days later, Zishen Sacred City returned to normal. New buildings were rebuilt in the ruins of the holy city. The upper echelons of the Zishuan clan were all kneeling in front of the hall, not daring to look up at Zhuowen. "Let's follow the plan. Elder Di, Elder Lu, I will conquer the newer realm and Luo God realm. The rest of the realms will be left to you too. If you have any objections, feel free to raise them." Zhuowen looked at Elder Di and Elder Lu, who were sitting next to him, and said with a smile. Elder Lu and Elder Di shook their heads and said, "Of course we have no objections. Except for the newer realm and Luo God realm, the great sovereigns of the other higher realms were basically killed by you, young Master Zhuo. This mission is really easy for us." They already knew about what happened in Zishen Sacred City. It could be said that Zhuowen's task for them was very simple. "Good. If you two have no objections, then let's go. I will wait for your good news." Zhuowen slowly stood up and looked at Elder Lu and Elder Di with a smile. "Young Master Zhuo, don't worry. We will not disappoint you." Elder Lu and Elder Di cupped their fists at Zhuowen and left the temple. "Master, Huangju just sent a message saying that everything is a misunderstanding. He hopes that you and he will mind your own business in the future." After Elder Lu and Elder Di left, Ziyang bent down and whispered to Zhuowen. "Mind my own business? How dare Huangju say that?" Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a cold light. Back then, he came to the 100 Outer Realms alone to find the whereabouts of Moyan Wushang. The second reason was the threat from the newer clan. His hometown, the Starry Sky, was too small for the great sovereign of the newer clan, Huangju. If it weren't for Duan Jipeng's help, most of the living beings in the Starry Sky would have been destroyed. Now, he had finally succeeded in his cultivation. He had to settle old and new debts with the newer clan. "Brother Duan, you've finally come out of seclusion," Zhuowen suddenly said softly. A crack appeared in the void beside him, and a figure slowly walked out. He had a handsome face and waist-length hair. It was Duan Jipeng. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I've always remembered concubine Yun's revenge." Duan Jipeng's voice was low. He clenched his fists tightly, and a terrifying aura flowed out of his body. Zhuowen nodded slightly. Duan Jipeng's progress was fast. During the time when the Saint Lord of 7 Emotions and 6 Desires was cultivating in the Starry Sky realm, his cultivation had reached the peak of the cosmic Dharma plane. With such a cultivation, he could be considered an expert standing at the peak of the higher realms. "Today is the day you get your revenge. Are you ready?" Zhuowen looked at Duan Jipeng and smiled. "Okay." Duan Jipeng nodded. "Let's go." Zhuowen stepped out of the temple. Duan Jipeng, Ziyang, and Luo Ya followed closely behind. Many of the higher-ups of the Zishen clan in the temple followed behind, bowing their heads. Zhuowen summoned the chariot of chariots and leaped onto it. He looked in the direction of the newer realm. After today, the newer clan will cease to exist. In the central grand temple of Newer City, Huang Ju sat on the divine throne with his brows tightly knitted. His body was still trembling slightly. Everything that had happened in Zishen City kept replaying in his mind. In front of the throne, the Reverend Ju Emperor of the two clans and the Reverend Nu Jun of the three clans looked at Huang Ju worriedly. Ever since Huang Ju returned, he had been sitting on the throne. His body kept trembling, and he was in a daze. They naturally understood what happened in Zishen Sacred City. Especially when they found out that Zhuowen was still alive, they were very shocked. Great Clan Lord, since you've escaped death, you'll be fine. No matter how strong Zhuowen is, he won't dare to cause trouble in our newer realm, the Reverend Ju Emperor of the two clans said. Our newer city's defensive power is one of the best among all the high-level divine cities. If he comes, we'll make sure he doesn't leave, the Reverend Nu Jun of the three clans said confidently. Huang Ju looked at the two, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, Newer City may not be able to stop Zhuowen. If we can avoid the battle, then we won't. Have you delivered the message I asked you to send to Ziyang? The Reverend Ju Emperor and the Reverend Nu Jun looked at each other. They thought that Huang Ju was making a fuss over nothing. However, they didn't dare to disobey Huang Ju's order. They nodded. Chapter 4466. Has Ziyang replied yet? Huang Ju quickly asked. Not yet, she said. Huang Ju frowned. Just as he was about to speak, the entire city shook violently. Three clan masters, enemy attack. Enemy attack. Outside the temple, several servants suddenly walked in and knelt in the middle of the temple. Their voices were filled with fear. What? Huang Ju was greatly alarmed and had a bad premonition. He quickly stood up and rushed out of the shrine. The Ju Emperor and she quickly followed behind him. After they walked out of the temple, they looked up. At the top of the city, there was a luxurious and exquisite sacred chariot suspended in the air. On the sacred chariot, a young man stood with his hands behind his back, coldly looking down at the huge newer divine city. Zhuowen. Huang Ju looked at the young man standing on the sacred chariot with fear in his eyes. Until now, the incident that happened in Zishen Holy City still lingered in his mind for a long time, unable to disperse. That little bastard is still alive. She frowned slightly and a trace of hostility flashed in her eyes. Although Huang Ju told her that Zhuowen had killed many starlight experts in Zishen Sacred City, she didn't believe it. Her impression of Zhuowen was still the same as when they were in the Golden Crow mountain range. He was the young man who could only run for his life after being chased by her. In her eyes, no matter how strong Zhuowen was, how strong could he be? Great Clan Master, aren't you being too cautious? No matter how strong Zhuowen is, can he compete with the entire newer clan? Now, I'm going to gather all the elites in the clan. We must kill this kid. Her eyes were full of killing intent and she planned to go to the clan to gather the real elites. Wait. Let's not provoke him. Open the city defense array and guard it first, Huang Ju suddenly said. She and the Ju Emperor frowned slightly. They were slightly displeased and felt that Huang Ju was being too cautious. However, Huang Ju was the great clan master after all, so they didn't dare to disobey him. Not long after, the continent emperor opened the great city barrier array, while the handsome female cultivator gathered over 10,000 elite cultivators in the central square. Master, they opened the city defense array. Should we take this opportunity to stop them? In the sacred chariot, Ziyang saw a layer of dazzling array ripples on the surface of newer divine city and couldn't help but remind Zhuowen. It's okay. I'm here today for revenge. Only when they are fully prepared can we defeat them and make them feel the deepest despair. Zhuowen had his hands behind his back. His expression was calm, but the words he spoke were incomparably cold. After the city defense array was fully opened, Huang Ju calmed down a little. Although he was curious why Zhuoan didn't take the opportunity to attack the city before the city defense array was fully formed, he didn't think too much about it. He just thought that Zhuoan was afraid of the newer clan and didn't attack immediately. Zhuoan, I've sent Ziyang a message before, haven't I? This is all a misunderstanding. You and I can stay out of each other's business from now on. Why do we have to fight? Huang Ju rose into the air and looked at Zhuoan on the sacred chariot. Zhuoan indifferently looked down at Huang Ju. Suddenly, he pointed at Duan Jipeng and asked, Huang Ju, do you still remember him? Huang Ju looked at Duan Jipeng and said indifferently, Duan Jipeng? Looks like you're on good terms with Zhuoan. You seduced my granddaughter and stole the dark chakra eye of my clan. It's a serious crime. Since you are acquainted with Zhuoan, I can let bygones be bygones for his sake. Duan Jipeng trembled and clenched his fists. He stared at Huang Ju. Huang Ju, you're really shameless. Who killed Imperial concubine Yun, and who stole whose dark chakra eye? You old bastard, you deserve to die. Duan Jipeng suppressed his anger. Huang Ju's face turned cold. Duan Jipeng, you're too presumptuous. Don't think that you can be so unscrupulous just because you have Zhuoan's support. I can kill you easily. You'd better stop before you go too far. Zhuoan, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, interrupted coldly. Brother Duan is my friend. You'd better be polite. Huang Ju's face froze. Anger surged in his eyes. He had shown enough respect, but Zhuoan still didn't know what was good for him. Did he really think that he, Huang Ju, was a pushover? Even though Zhuoan was very powerful, Newer City had been built up over the years. He might not be able to take them down. Do you still remember the heartless plan of the Newer clan in the lower realm? One of my confidants has become the sacrifice of your ruthless and desireless plan. She suffered a lot, and it's all because of you. Zhuoan continued. Huang Ju's eyes narrowed. The continent emperor suddenly spoke. You know about the heartless plan? Did you kill Venerable Hongrue? The continent emperor was the one who led the heartless plan. He had conducted experiments in many lower realms and sacrificed countless lives. Finally, he succeeded in one of the lower realms. However, there were exceptions. Even Venerable Hongrue and the others he sent died in the lower realms. This made the continent emperor very angry. Originally, he planned to track Venerable Hongrue's aura and find out which lower realms he came from. Then, he would sacrifice all the lives in that lower realms. However, he was shocked to find that Venerable Hongrue's aura was sealed. He couldn't find the specific location in the end, so he left it at that. Now that Zhuoan suddenly mentioned it, he immediately recalled this matter. That's right. I killed him. Back then, I was a native of that lower realms. I came to the 100 outer realms in order to become stronger, so that I can wipe out the Newer clan and prevent future troubles. Zhuoan said calmly. Zhuoan, I'm afraid you can't even break the Great City Barrier Formation. You want to eliminate the Newer clan? What a joke. The handsome woman sneered. Whether or not I can eliminate the Newer clan is not up to you. It's up to me. Zhuoan sneered. He took a step forward and appeared on the surface of the Great City Barrier Formation as if he had teleported. He waved his right sleeve. Instantly, many black array discs flashed out and circled around him, spinning clockwise. He formed a seal with both hands. Lines of array runes surged out and formed a strange vortex. The surrounding black formation plates revolved around the whirlpool and spun continuously. Bang! The vortex suddenly rushed out and heavily smashed onto the Great Defensive Formation. An extremely ear-piercing explosive sound was emitted. Crack, crack, crack. The strange sound kept ringing on the surface of the Great City Barrier Formation. It spread throughout the entire Newer Divine City. All the clansmen in the city couldn't help but raise their heads. Then, they were shocked to find that the Great City Barrier Formation that they were so proud of had countless cracks on it. How is this possible? The Great City Barrier Formation is at the third sky of the Eternal Realm. How could he break it so easily? The handsome woman was dumbfounded. The smile at the corner of her mouth was completely stiff. Her face was filled with disbelief. Huang Ju and the continent emperor's expressions changed drastically. Chapter 4467. Zhuoan hovered in the air, his right hand forming a hook as he made a grabbing motion. With a cracking sound, the enormous Great City Barrier Array finally could not withstand the enormous pressure and collapsed with a loud bang. Array discs formed several rings around Zhuowen's body, each of them emitting a powerful ripple of array runes. The Great Defender Array of Newer City was only at the third heaven of the Eternal Realm. For Zhuowen, it was not difficult for him to break this level of array. Kill. A ferocious glint flashed in the girl's eyes. She leaped up, leading tens of thousands of elite troops, like a dragon leaping through the 9 heavens, and rushed toward the sacred chariot in the sky. The Jew Emperor followed closely behind, his eyes cold. The merciless plan was the result of his life's work. It was about to succeed, but it was ruined by this man. Now, the Jew Emperor's heart was filled with killing intent. He only wanted to kill Zhuowen as soon as possible. Only Huang Ju's face was extremely pale. The scene in Zixien Sacred City a few days ago was still echoing in his mind. This man was too strong. If even the Great Defender Array could not stop him, there was nothing in Newer City that could stop him. Girl, Jew Emperor, retreat. Don't fight this man head-on, Huang Ju suddenly shouted. He wanted to stop the handsome woman and the continent emperor from rushing out. However, he was one step too slow. The girl had already appeared in front of the sacred chariot. At this moment, the girl's body was covered in dazzling starlight, like a goddess bathed in starlight. She held the feather fan in her right hand and suddenly threw it at Zhuowen. The feather fan expanded in the wind, suddenly becoming dozens of feet wide, and the surface of the fan was decorated with starlight. Whoosh! The girl waved her right hand, and the feather fan swept through the air. Fierce divine wind whistled out. Countless divine wind condensed into hundreds of giant dragons, circling around and attacking the sacred chariot in the center from all directions. Boom! 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 The hundreds of giant dragons slammed into the sacred chariot, and then there was a series of explosions. The space around the chariot collapsed with a loud rumble, forming cracks and black holes one after another. It looked exceptionally terrifying. This was her strongest innate technique. Even if it was Zhuowen, he would most likely be heavily injured if he took this attack head-on. Handsome girl, be careful behind you. Suddenly, the continent emperor's terrified voice could be heard. The girl's pupils tightened and she suddenly turned her head. She happened to see a divine carriage floating in the air, stopping 100 meters behind her. Zhuowen was standing on top of the divine chariot, completely unharmed. He was only looking at him with a cold smile. At this moment, a chill ran down the woman's spine. A chill ran from the soles of her feet straight up to her Tianling acupoint. When did Zhuowen appear behind her? She didn't notice it at all. Luoya, it's time for you to show me your loyalty, Zhuowen said slowly with his hands behind his back. Luoya, who had been standing respectfully behind the chariot in an inconspicuous manner, cupped her hands deeply and walked out of the chariot. As soon as Luoya appeared, she no longer concealed her late-stage ancient starlight aura. With the divine chariot as the center, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply. Countless ice crystals appeared out of nowhere in the air. Rumble. Above the void behind Luoya, a huge ancient starlight broke through the air and appeared. The tens of thousands of elites brought by the girl were all frozen into ice sculptures as soon as they came into contact with the ice domain released by Luoya. No one was spared. Moreover, the freezing speed was getting faster and faster. First, it was the cultivator army at the front. Then, it spread rapidly. More than half of the cultivators were turned into ice sculptures and fell from the sky. The cultivator army at the back, seeing how powerful Luoya was, fled in horror. Unfortunately, the ice domain released by Luoya spread too fast. In the blink of an eye, all the cultivator army was frozen into ice sculptures. No one was able to escape. Luotian clan's patriarch Luoya? The moment the girl and the continent emperor saw Luoya, they were both shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear. In a higher realm, Luo Yue was a supreme expert second only to Zi Yang. She was much stronger than Huang Ju. Due to the divine chariot's ability to automatically block divine sense, Luo Yue and Zi Yang were sitting in the divine chariot in a very low-key manner. Therefore, the moment Huang Ju and the others saw the divine chariot, they only saw Zhuowen. They didn't notice Luo Yue and Zi Yang. "Girl, retreat quickly." The Zhu emperor immediately retreated to the back and warned the woman loudly. The girl's eyes were filled with horror. She didn't even think about it. She summoned her cosmic form and fled in the direction away from Luo Yue. Bang! The moment the girl fled, Luo Yue's jade-like hand pinched the air. In the space around the girl, countless ice crystals appeared and condensed into an oval-shaped ice ball. The girl was trapped in the ice ball. No matter how she used all kinds of divine abilities, she couldn't shake the ice ball at all. What frightened the girl even more was that the ice ball was rapidly shrinking. "No!" The girl let out a shrill scream. In the end, the ice ball was compressed into a small dot and was annihilated into powder. As for the girl, her body and soul were annihilated along with the ice ball. As for the cosmic image that the young woman had just summoned, it let out a mournful wail as it too collapsed and disappeared. It only took Luo Yue 3 breaths to take care of the girl and the 10,000 elite troops. From this, it could be seen how big the gap between the two was. The continent emperor was so frightened that he fled in panic toward Huangju. Right now, Huangjue was the only one within Newer City who had the power to fight against Luo Yue. As long as he joined forces with Huangju, Luo Yue might not be able to kill them. Suddenly, the continent emperor stopped and stared at the beautiful figure in front of him. Zi Yang of the Zi Shen clan. The continent emperor's pupils shrank into needles. He naturally recognized the beautiful woman who blocked his way. The moment the continent emperor fled, Zi Yang in the divine chariot also moved under Zhuowen's command. "Continent emperor, where do you think you're going?" Zi Yang raised her head slightly and stared at the continent emperor with her beautiful eyes. She spoke slowly, but her tone was extremely cold. "Great clan emperor, save me." The continent emperor roared and immediately summoned his defying ancient celestial body and blasted it toward Zi Yang, while he rushed toward Huangju. "You're just an early-stage defying ancient celestial body. Die." Zi Yang sneered and summoned her defying ancient celestial body, which collided with the continent emperor's defying ancient celestial body. Rumble. As soon as the two defying ancient celestial bodies collided, the continent emperor's defying ancient celestial body was sent flying, and the huge starlight world was immediately shattered. The giant that held up the starlight world knelt on the ground with a painful expression. At the same time, Zi Yang blocked the continent emperor again and fought with him. Instead of saying that the two were fighting, it was more like a one-sided slaughter. The gap between the continent emperor and Zi Yang was too big. The two were not on the same level at all. Not far away, Huangju's face turned even paler when he saw this scene. He naturally knew that Zi Yang and Zhuowen had a close relationship. However, he did not expect that even Luo Yue would stand on Zhuowen's side. The Newer clan had no chance of winning this battle. Chapter 4468. No. Zhu Huang let out a sorrowful cry. His Tianling acupoint had been hit by Zi Yang's palm, and his entire body had been torn apart. A tiny divine soul figure emitting golden light flew out of Zhu Huang's body and fled into the distance. Divine soul sword essence. A cold voice sounded. Just as the tiny divine soul figure flew into the air, a purple gold sword essence pierced through the air and pierced the tiny divine soul figure. You. Zhu Huang's divine soul figure stared at the young man on the sacred chariot in the distance, his eyes full of hatred. With an unwilling roar, his divine soul collapsed with a loud rumble. After destroying Zhu Huang's divine soul, Zhuowen still stood with his hands behind his back, his indifferent eyes fixed on Huangju. Swoosh! Luo Yue and Zi Yang transformed into two streaks of flowing light that descended behind Zhuowen. They stood there with their bodies bowed, and they seemed like servants. Huangju felt Zhuowen's gaze and felt a chill run down his spine, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. Zhuowen, I'm willing to serve you as my master. Please spare my life. Huang Ju suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to Zhuowen, begging for mercy. Huang Ju's kneeling was like a domino effect. All the clansmen of the newer clan also knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. If you want to live, then make a choice. Zhuowen said slowly from the sacred chariot, his voice cold and emotionless. Huang Ju's body trembled. His eyes flashed, and he made up his mind. He pointed his right finger at his forehead and offered his divine soul mark. He was already no match for Zhuo when alone. Luo Ya and Zi Yang, two experts who were stronger than him, were also present. He knew very well that he was no match for Zhuowen. Not enough. Zhuowen took away Huang Ju's divine soul mark, shook his head, and said calmly. Huang Ju's expression changed slightly. He immediately understood what Zhuowen meant. Zhuowen wanted the soul imprints of the entire newer clan. He wanted to take the entire newer clan under his control and make them his slave. Huang Ju, my patience is limited. With my current strength, it won't be difficult for me to wipe out your entire clan. Zhuowen spoke once again. However, the words that came out of his mouth were extremely cold and emotionless. Huang Ju sighed in his heart. Suddenly, he shouted, "Everyone, give me your soul imprint." The entire newer city was silent at first. Then, the members of the newer clan offered up their soul imprints, their eyes glazed over. Zhuowen's soul imprints soared into the sky one after another, emitting dazzling golden light, and were absorbed into the depths of his soul. Master! Master! Within newer city, all of the clansmen were kneeling on the ground as they addressed Zhuowen as master. Their voices were vast and mighty, and they were like a ferocious wave that flowed endlessly. Duanjipeng, I was wrong back then. Please, for Consort Yun's sake, spare my life. After completely surrendering, Huang Ju realized that the murderous intent in Zhuowen's eyes still hadn't subsided. Shocked, he knelt in front of Duanjipeng, took out the dark chakra eye from the starlight world, and handed it to Duanjipeng. Brother Duan, Huang Ju is yours to deal with. If you want to kill him, I will kill him, Zhuowen said calmly. Duanjipeng closed his eyes and opened them again. The murderous intent in his heart gradually subsided. Huang Ju, I won't kill you. I want you to use your life and time to atone for your sins to Consort Yun, Duanjipeng said coldly. Huang Ju hurriedly kowtowed. The way he looked at Duanjipeng suddenly became very complicated. After successfully subduing the newer clan, Zhuowen asked Huang Ju to reorganize the newer clan. Then, he headed for the Luo God Realm. The Luo God Realm was Luo Ya's territory. Now, Luo Ya had recognized Zhuowen as her master. Therefore, when he subdued the Luo God clan, Zhuowen didn't spend too many twists and turns and succeeded easily. After successfully subduing the Luo God Realm and Newer Realm, Zhuowen returned to the Purple Jade Realm and began to wait for the news of victory from Elder Lu and Elder Di. A month later, Elder Lu and Elder Di returned to the Purple Jade Realm from other realms. Naturally, they also brought good news. There were a total of 15 higher realms in the 100 outer realms. Except for the Newer Realm, the Purple Jade Realm and the Luo God Realm, the other 12 higher realms had surrendered. Most of the clans in the higher realms had never heard of the Void family. However, they knew clearly about the super realms. When they learned that Elder Lu and Elder Di came from the super realms, these clans in the higher realms gave up resistance and surrendered easily. Young Master Zhuo, since the punitive mission has been completed, we should return. On the third day after Elder Lu and Elder Di returned, they bid farewell to Zhuowen and left. Zhuowen didn't urge them to stay. Next, Zhuowen ordered Zi Yang and Luo Ya to take over the ruling rights of the other higher realms. Anyone who resisted was to be killed without mercy. In a short 3 months, Zi Yang and Luo Ya firmly grasped the ruling rights of all the higher realms in their hands. Purple Jade Sacred City, in the center of the Great Shrine. Zhuowen sat on the main seat of the Great Shrine, looking down at the restless crowd below. On both sides of Zhuowen, Zi Yang and Luo Ya stood respectfully, like two most loyal maids. In the 2 rows below, there were cultivators in different clothing styles sitting. There were a total of 13 of them. These 13 were representatives from the other 13 higher realms. At this moment, they were summoned by Zhuowen. They were all nervous and didn't dare to look directly at Zhuowen. During this period, Zhuowen's name had spread throughout the higher realms. This name was like a nightmare, appearing in everyone's mind. In the end, everyone had no choice but to submit to this person. "Master, may I know why you've summoned us here?" Huang Ju, who was sitting at the front, quickly stood up and asked Zhuowen with cupped fists. Zhuowen's gaze slowly moved down to Huang Ju and asked, "Huang Ju, have you ever thought that the newer realm will one day become a supreme realm?" Huang Ju was stunned and then turned pale with fright. He quickly lowered his head and didn't dare to answer. Zhuowen continued, "Speak. You don't have to hide your thoughts in front of me." Huang Ju swallowed and said in a deep voice, "Of course I have, but that's impossible. A supreme realm is a divine dragon high up in the sky. Our higher realms can't even hope to reach it. Is there no precedent for a higher realm to be promoted to a supreme realm?" Zhuowen asked again. Huang Ju's body trembled slightly and said in a low voice, "There is a precedent. Now, the second-ranked supreme realm, the other ghost realm, was promoted from a higher realm to a supreme realm, but what?" Zhuowen asked. "But it's too difficult. The other ghost realm swallowed the resources of the Pangu realm and merged with the Heartless realm and the Xuannong realm to finally reach this step," Huang Ju said with a wry smile. In his view, the history of the other ghost realm's development was the history of the birth of miracles. He didn't think that it was possible to replicate the other ghost realm now. "I can make you a supreme realm, as long as you give me time," Zhuowen said softly with the corners of his mouth raised slightly. His words were like thunder that exploded in everyone's ears and shocked everyone. "What? Master, are you joking?" Huang Ju said in disbelief. Luo Ya and Zi Yang revealed surprised expressions as well. This was the first time they had heard such words from Zhuowen. "The first step is that the 15 higher realms must be merged. Remember, I'm talking about merging, not joining forces. Only by merging can we have the possibility of advancing to a supreme realm. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about," Zhuowen said indifferently. "Merge." Below, everyone was in an uproar. They whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. The higher realms had been fighting each other for countless years and had never thought of merging. Now, Zhuowen suddenly proposed such a method, which shocked everyone and made them feel disbelief. Chapter 4469. Is there anyone here who disagrees? Zhuowen sat on the main seat, his entire body exuding a wild and domineering aura as he looked down at the people below him. The people who were originally discussing animatedly were all silent like cicadas in winter when they sensed Zhuowen's terrifying aura. Now, they were horrified to realize that they, the representatives of the higher realms, were in fact firmly under the control of the young man in front of them. For countless years, the higher realms had been fighting with each other, and the flames of war had been everywhere. The matter of a merger was naturally a fantasy. But now, the young man in front of them had completely conquered all the higher realms with his unparalleled strength and methods. If he took action, there was really a possibility that the 15 higher realms could merge. Everyone, once the 15 higher realms merge and finally transform into a super realm, all of you who participated in today's decision will be forever recorded in the annals of history. In the long river of history, your names will shine and be remembered by people. Zhuowen's tone became gentle. He knew very well that the way to control people should be a combination of hardness and gentleness. If one was too hard, it would be easy to break, and if one was too soft, it would be easy to break. Only by combining hardness and gentleness could one truly control people. Sure enough, the people who had been somewhat resistant to Zhuowen's suggestion gradually calmed down. Zhuowen's last sentence had become a huge temptation to them. Leave their names in history and be remembered forever. Who wouldn't want that? Just as Zhuowen had said, if the merger of the 15 higher realms could really become a super realm, they would be the greatest contributors. I agree with Master's suggestion. Zi Yang stood up and knelt in front of Zhuowen, her eyes filled with undisguised admiration. I also agree. Luo Ya was not to be outdone and also knelt down. I agree. I agree. Everyone in the hall knelt down in unison. Zhuowen looked down at the people kneeling in front of him and narrowed his eyes slightly. At this moment, he felt the boundless taste of supreme power. He finally understood why people would chase after power for their entire lives. It was because this taste was too delicious. All of a sudden, Zhuowen's eyes became clear, and he was shocked. In that instant, he had actually been immersed in the whirlpool of power for a moment. If he didn't wake up in time, it would give birth to an inner demon. At that time, it would be really troublesome. Ziyang, Luo Ya, I'll leave the merging of the higher realms to you. Zhuowen's expression was gloomy. He instructed Ziyang and Luo Ya before hurriedly leaving the hall. Back in his room, Zhuowen sat cross-legged and began to practice the primordial meditation. It was only after the inner demons in his body had been completely wiped clean by the primordial meditation that he slowly woke up. That was really dangerous. I didn't expect that an inner demon would be born in my body at that moment. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief, but there was still some lingering fear in his heart. Looks like it's mainly because I'm advancing too quickly. My foundation isn't completely stable yet, and my temperament isn't perfect yet. Looks like I won't be able to increase my cultivation for a while. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Compared to other cultivators, the speed at which he increased his cultivation could be said to be terrifying. He understood that he shouldn't be in a hurry to increase his cultivation. Instead, he should start to train his temperament. Otherwise, if he continued, there would be a huge problem in his cultivation. Just as well. I can use this time to consolidate my cultivation while planning the merging of the higher realms. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a bright light as he looked outside the window. Time gradually passed, and in the blink of an eye, more than 2 years had passed. In these 2 years, Zhuowen didn't cultivate even once. Instead, he spent all his energy on merging the higher realms. Through his efforts, the merging of 15 higher realms had already achieved initial results. First, he had to unify the people. 15 different realms. Each region had different customs, culture, power, and so on. In the beginning, the people's hearts weren't united, and there were even many places that faced strong resistance. However, Zhuowen didn't take tough measures. Instead, he used a subtle way to gradually guide the people's hearts and change the views of many creatures. Moreover, he tried his best to promote trade between the different realms, so that the different races of the 15 different realms gradually got used to each other. In the end, the majority of the people stood on Zhuowen's side. Secondly, there was the connection of the realms. In the past 2 years, Zhuowen had gathered all the elite formation masters in 15 high-tier realms and started to build teleportation formations in each realm. Almost every city in each realm had more than 3 digits of transmission arrays. They could transmit up to hundreds of thousands of people at a time. And the one who took the most credit was the Thunder Array clan. Ever since Zhuowen settled down in Zixuan Sacred City, he passed on all his experience in formations to the Ju Yuan. And after the Ju Yuan had succeeded in learning, he returned to the Thunder Array clan and became the new clan leader of the Thunder Array clan. Therefore, the Thunder Array clan had used up all their manpower and resources to build countless net-like transmission arrays this time. In the end, it was to improve their foundation and increase their battle strength. Zhuowen knew that if a higher realm wanted to transform into a super realm, not only did it have to have a vast territory that reached the minimum standard, but it also had to have enough true experts. Most importantly, it had to have high-level experts. For example, the weakest super realm had at least one expert of the law phenomenon of heaven and earth level. Now, there were no experts of this level in the 15 higher realms. Zhuowen knew that he had to cultivate such an expert to become the king of this new super realm. In the future, the 15 higher realms will no longer exist and will be replaced by the Kanglan realm. In the future, the Kanglan realm will become a new super realm, or even an invincible realm. At the peak of a mountain that towered into the clouds, Zhuowen stood with his hands behind his back as he looked down at the vast territory below him, and he spoke with boundless heroism. Ziyang and Luo Ya stood quietly behind Zhuowen, their beautiful eyes shining with a strange light. Master, we have selected a new batch of geniuses. These juniors have all passed the training that we have jointly designed. They are the proud sons of heaven who have survived the baptism of blood and fire. How do you plan to settle them down? Ziyang cupped his fists and asked Zhuowen in a low voice. Hold a genius martial arts competition. Whoever wins will be able to enter the starlight world of the 7 emotions and 6 desires Saint Lord to cultivate and be personally taught by Wu Shong, Zhuowen said indifferently. As he learned more, Zhuowen understood the power of the 7 emotions and 6 desires Saint Lord. Although they were both at the defying ancient starlight realm, the 7 emotions and 6 desires Saint Lord was infinitely close to the law phenomenon of heaven and earth. Although he had died many years ago, the starlight world he had left behind was still far more powerful than Ziyang and Luo Ya. Moreover, the time in his world had been accelerated, making it the best tool for the Kanglan domain to nurture the younger generation of geniuses. Chapter 4470. In addition, Zhuowen also passed down the simplified version of the primordial technique. Not only did he want the geniuses with Dao roots in the Kanglan domain to embark on the path of experts, but he also wanted those mortals without Dao roots to embark on this extraordinary path. 90% of the Kanglan domain's population was made up of mortals. If these mortals could cultivate and become experts, then even if the Kanglan domain didn't have a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert, its foundation wouldn't be any weaker than a super-level domain's. From then on, the Kanglan domain would be the first force that Zhuowen established in the 100 domains outside the domain that belonged to him. XDW8. There were only 2 goals for the Kanglan domain. The first was to continuously develop and break through. The second was to surpass the alternate ghost domain and take revenge for the miserable Pangu clan. After the 15 high-level domains were integrated, the Zishuan domain became the center, and the names of the various high-level domains also changed. For example, the Zishuan domain was renamed the Zishuan region, and the Newer domain was renamed the Newer region. As the core of the Kanglan domain, the Zishuan sacred city was naturally renamed the Kanglan sacred city. At this moment, outside the Kanglan sacred city, Zhuowen sat on the sacred chariot, suspended in mid-air. Ziyang, Luo Ya, and the other representatives of the higher realms were also standing respectfully below. At the front of the representatives, Moyan Wushang and Duan Jipeng stood side by side, while Shan Lingyun and Shapotian stood on the side. It looked quite funny. Everyone, I need to go to the Xiling domain to deal with some matters. Therefore, I will not be here for a period of time. During my absence, Moyan Wushang and Duan Jipeng will jointly manage the Kanglan domain. Zhuowen looked down at the crowd and spoke slowly, his voice full of majesty. Ziyang, Huangju, Luo Ya, and the other representatives looked at each other in dismay, setting off an uproar. Zhuowen's decision was too sudden, and he had not mentioned it before. Moyan Wushang, Duan Jipeng, and the others' expressions were normal. They already knew that Zhuowen was going to the Xiling domain. Now that Zhuowen suddenly mentioned it, they were not surprised. At first, Moyan Wushang had planned to go with Zhuowen, but Zhuowen rejected him. Zhuowen was very clear that the task given to him by old man Anshi was of great importance, and it was bound to be dangerous. If he carried out the mission alone, he wouldn't have any worries. If Moyan Wushang followed him, it would distract him. Do you have any objections? Zhuowen spoke again, his voice gradually becoming colder. Master's words, to us, are the true words of the law. How dare we have any objections? Everyone lowered their heads and bowed submissively. Brother Duan, the Kanglan domain will depend on you. Zhuowen looked at Moyan Wushang, Duan Jipeng, and the others, and his tone softened. Zhuowen, be careful. If you really encounter danger, don't take it head-on. Do you understand? Moyan Wushang landed in front of Zhuowen and gave him a gentle hug, whispering to him in a soft voice. Zhuowen hugged Moyan Wushang's slender waist and nodded heavily. Wait for me to come back. Miss Wushang is right. Brother Zhuo, sometimes you can't be too stubborn. Duan Jipeng walked over and patted Zhuowen's shoulder heavily. Disciple, after going to the Xiling domain, remember to miss me. Shan Lingyun wiped her eyes. Master, don't miss me too much. I'm very happy here with Sister Shan. Anyway, I'm not going back to the outside world. Shapotian smiled foolishly as he followed behind Shan Lingyun and said thoughtlessly, Little brat, are you tired of the old? I've been so good to you. Now that you've been with this woman for a few days, you've forgotten me? As soon as Shapotian finished speaking, Xiao Hei couldn't help but come out of the outside world. She grabbed Shapotian's collar with her little claws and dragged him toward the outside world. Woo woo woo. Master Hei, no, I want to be with Sister Shan. Zhuoan didn't pay attention to Xiao Hei and Shapotian. Instead, he instructed Moyan Wushang, Duan Jipeng, Shan Lingyun, and the others. Then, he waved his hand and drove the chariot away. With the chariot, Zhuoan didn't need a divine ship to go to the supreme domain. Although there was a terrifying dark ruins between a high-level realm and a super realm, the dark ruins was filled with many dangers. Although the chariot was fast, after entering the dark ruins, its speed was still affected. In order to prevent the dangers that could appear at any time in the dark ruins, Zhuoan deliberately slowed down the chariot, hoping to have enough buffer time to deal with all kinds of dangers. Fortunately, Zhuoan didn't encounter any accidents along the way. Of course, this was mainly due to the speed of the chariot. Every time he discovered many dangers in the dark ruins, Zhuoan would speed up and shake off the dangers in time. Zibo City was the only port city in the Xiling domain that was connected to the dark ruins. It was one of the most prosperous cities in the Xiling domain. Before arriving at Zibo City, Zhuoan put away the chariot and replaced it with an ordinary divine ship. The chariot was too extraordinary. If he openly barged into Zibo City like this, it was inevitable that he would be targeted and cause a lot of trouble. After entering Zibo City, Zhuoan casually found an inn and checked in. In the room, Zhuoan took out Ziyu from the outside world. Bang! Ziyu's limbs were still restrained and he was originally in a state of coma. With Zhuowen's heavy toss, he immediately woke up. Zhuoan, what are you doing? Ziyu saw Zhuoan and immediately retreated in fear. At the same time, he noticed that he was no longer in the outside world but in an unfamiliar room. Zhuoan looked down at Ziyu indifferently. Ziyu, let me ask you. Do you know the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground? The Purple Heaven Sacred Ground was Zhuowan's destination in the Xiling domain. Elder Anshi had once told him that the furnace of heaven and earth was in the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground. It was now in the custody of the old sect master of the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground, waiting for Elder Anshi's people to come and take it. However, there were too many people eyeing the furnace of heaven and earth. Zhuoan couldn't enter the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground rashly to find the old sect master. He had to enter in an extremely inconspicuous way and then find an opportunity to contact the old sect master. Elder Anshi had warned him that this mission was extremely dangerous and he had to be very careful. This was because there were lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts among the people eyeing the furnace of heaven and earth. Purple Heaven Sacred Ground? Of course I know. My family and the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground have been friends for generations. I have a good relationship with many geniuses in the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground. Ziyu suddenly replied proudly. However, he quickly realized something and immediately became vigilant. Why are you asking this? Ziyu saw Zhuowen's smile grow wider and wider. Her heart suddenly turned cold. She secretly thought that he was stupid. How could he reveal his relationship with the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground like this? Could it be that this Zhuowen in front of her was planning something bad again? Thinking of this, Ziyu's body trembled and she felt unwell. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.